And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
Attention to roll call. What's up, everybody? Good morning. Eric's out today. It's just going to be me and Marlon you're rolling with. Going through a lot of different things, but we're going to start talking about New York City car takeovers. We had a pretty crazy one over the weekend. I'm like debating whether I should show the video or not because there's some dude blowing two semi-automatics out the window as that's going on. They were supposedly rolling through the Bronx and Queens, as well as there is a large auto theft ring running around New York City. Traces of it all over New York City. We talked about it last week where we showed you the garage of that woman who got a car stolen, found her car. In the garage, she found all other stolen vehicles. NYPD appeared to be inept at that. So we're going to talk about what just recently happened on West 42nd Street in the 10th precinct where there was a crew tried to get some high-end cars, one of them being a McLaren. They failed. We're going to go through that. But before we do, what's up, Marlon?
Yo, good morning. Morning, guys. Morning, chat. Hope everyone had a great weekend and good Easter. Yeah, we got a lot to talk about this morning. And, once again, this is happening around Midtown, Manhattan. And remember when crime happened in Midtown Manhattan, it was like all hands on deck, and those days seem to have long passed, and every other day you're hearing a shooting or something ridiculous going on in Midtown Manhattan. But you can add this one to the pile, of the brazenness of it kind of runs against, in my opinion, the narrative that crime is down. But we'll get into that.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. It's pretty wild. Like I've been watching for the last few weeks, like brand new stolen cars stripped, which is, when you look at it, it makes sense and it doesn't, because, what you would think is a newer car would get retagged and either repurposed and sold somewhere else or moved outside of the country. And traditionally, we have older cars in America that are stolen. Why? Because you need parts for older cars, right? You need, as your cars start going, you need a lot of different parts. So when older cars are stolen, it's because they're valued more apart than they are together. So, but what we've been seeing in New York recently is not only older cars that are stripped, you're finding newer cars stripped too, which is obviously the Hondas are always a hot item ticket because it's one of the most sold cars in America. So it's obviously people need those cars the most. Sometimes those hits are for a particular client. I need this, I need that. They go out and they go get it. Oh, you need 2 doors from a Honda? Okay, let's go get it. So there's a lot of that going on. So if you scour the internet, you'll consistently see that happening where you're just finding newer cars completely stripped left on New York City streets. And they weren't stripped there, they were just dumped there. The tires and rims have always been a big thing, and the catalytic converters have been a big thing. Recently, over the weekend in Lyndhurst, New Jersey, they just caught 4 guys. Guess where they're from? The Bronx, stripping catalytic converters out. So it's something that's been happening for a while. This happened over the weekend. So this is in the 10th precinct in West 42nd Street. So you see right there's the McLaren there. Now they send an ESU just to do a search to ensure that, in fact, there's no other perps inside of that facility. But what happened is it's an overnight parking garage. People pay a lot of money, probably over $1,000 a month to park their vehicles in there. And the perps knew what cars were in there. They knew there was a McLaren in there. They knew there was a Range Rover in there. There was a Mercedes G-Wagon in there. So real high-end valued vehicles. And the guard that was monitoring that night, that was on duty, actually caught it. And you see what he did. He shut the gate. So they couldn't get the Range Rover out. And the whole thing was botched. The guy winded up smashing the McLaren into the pole. The G-Wagon was left in the middle of the street, and the perps got away. Now, I'm not knocking that the perps got away, but it's just something I feel that is really being downplayed because we watched, we watched Tish at the press conference last week tell you how grand loss in the auto's down, how all major crimes down. They're making history. And honestly, to me, I think they're bringing history back. This is something that I've experienced as a kid, like as a youth. You would see abandoned cars all over New York City. Why? Because there was a lot of auto theft at that time, right? You would see cars getting stripped. You would see rims and tires. I don't know if you guys remember the fog lights. People used to put fog lights on their car. People would steal the fog lights. They would steal the exterior lights of vehicles. And that kind of went away for a long time. And it just seems like it's all making a reemergence back into the city. And again, I'm going to say it's because there's a clear lack of manpower that also on top of the crime is being downplayed. That is a huge thing. When you do not have cops out patrolling the streets, it leads to more crime. People feel emboldened. I mean, how much time did it take to get all of these vehicles out of that garage onto the street? A melee ensues. And then the cops respond, and the perps still have enough time to get away in the middle of the night, overnight. This I believe they said this happened between 4 and 7 p.m., something like that. So early morning hours, nobody's out over the weekend. You should be able to see a car blaring away. Supposedly they left in a luxury high-end silver BMW, the perps, and you have to assume that car is also stolen. They're not going to go ripping through the streets, but maybe not, So, so to me, when I hear that auto theft is down, I'm just like, where is auto theft down? Is it just down in the reported statistics? Because what we're witnessing on the streets in New York City is obviously not that case.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, what's interesting is that the auto show is on right now. I think it's on from the 3rd. It's like maybe a week or two, the 3rd to the 11th. So the auto show is right in the area too, by the Javits Center. But yeah, right now New York City is I believe number 5th in the country for auto thefts. So it's and by the way, those auto thefts have definitely spiked since the pandemic. But you're seeing a lot of these videos of guys coming out, and you're seeing their vehicles on either bricks or crates. And there's also another one floating around social media of a guy who supposedly is confronting someone who's trying to sell him his stolen hubcaps. So apparently that's a thing again. Yeah, it's like we're going back to the 80s. Yeah, but yeah, we talk a lot of times on the show about how they manipulate CompStat and how those numbers are inaccurate. And one of the things we keep saying is that if crime is actually down, then why do we keep seeing the brazenness of all this, especially in Midtown, near Midtown? You would think, right, that Midtown would be like one of the most secure areas, I mean, like perps wouldn't. You'd rather go do your dirt in an area in the outer boroughs rather than Midtown Manhattan. Not only is Midtown Manhattan cameraed up, but you would think that there would be a lot of a lot of cops there and a lot of resources there, because it's the heart of the tourism industry in New York City. And if where Midtown Manhattan goes, the tourism dollars go. So if if it has a reputation of crime and high crime again, like it did in the 80s, then you're going to see a decrease in tourists wanting to come to New York. And nobody wants to take a trip to New York and get victimized. But nevertheless, you're starting to see all these brazen incidents happening in Midtown Manhattan, and those incidents include shootings. And there's been numerous of those, and now this. But I have to wonder, with the auto show coming around the corner, if we're going to see the annual activities we used to see with the gangs in that area too. because that used to be a big thing. For a couple of years we kind of clamped down on it, but if I'm seeing this now, then I have to wonder what's next over there.
No, yeah. I mean, I think that the gangs are out of control at this point. I mean, I was watching some dude, I can't think of his name yesterday. He was on Instagram and he was just going around New York interviewing the gangs. And it was like youth gangs, but I wouldn't even say I wouldn't say they were like 15 years old. The kids were like, they were like young adults. They were like, in their 20s. And, they were throwing up whatever signs they were, whatever neighborhood they were from. There were all these like different little crews, I wouldn't say like the big, like when we were kids, like the Latin Kings and like big gangs like that, but there were all these different crews. And so, to listen to all this stuff when there's organized theft rings going on. And then, when I'm watching that and I'm watching the street takeovers, and I'm going to bring up the street takeover, whatever. It is what it is. I know they might get mad at us, but we'll see. Hopefully we don't get taken down. If we get taken down, go over to X or go to what's it called? Go over to Rumble. But so, when you watch all the stuff that's happening in New York City, and then you like I brought up that public safety hearing the other day where I was talking about, not that I was talking about, but all the city council members were talking about that they want to know what their precinct numbers are, the precincts in their district, what their head count is versus what their authorized head count is, so they could see how short they are on officers. And NYPD Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch refused to answer the question. She would not put it out there publicly on record. She was like very annoyed that every single one of them asked her that same question. And she just kept saying, I'll speak to you after. I'll speak to you after. I'll speak to you after. And to me, that's unacceptable. If I was the city council person, I would be like, no, you have the numbers right in front of you in that book. I want to know what they are. I want those numbers on record publicly, because you're telling us there's 35,000 officers, and yet it doesn't feel like that in any precinct whatsoever across the city, because every city council member sitting on this public safety committee is asking you this question that you're refusing to publicly put on record. And, that is the result of where, people feel emboldened. Now, this video comes out of the Bronx, and I'm not going to play it because they are going to take us down. So it's just stupid. It's not worth it.
Yeah, once they see the gun, they'll take it down.
Yeah. So, but this is a huge takedown. There's hundreds of kids here. There's dozens of cars. There's like 30, 40 cars, and the car's doing a burnout, right? And that this has been going on for a few years now, and the NYPD has shown a complete inability to strategize against this and stop these things from occurring, right? People get killed at these things. Cars flip. A lot of property damage happen. There's a lot of fights at this thing. Sometimes there's shootings at this. What's specifically crazy about this, I posted this on my Instagram. It came out of Coronavirus New York over the weekend. And this one's wild because not one, but two guns come out of the window of this vehicle that's doing these burnouts. And they have what's known as a switch, right? They made their handguns automatic. And so they just pull the handgun out of the windows as the car's doing the burnouts, and they light it off in the air. Now, if that's not a sign of a lawless society, I don't know what is. There's hundreds of people on the street. They're firing automatic weapons into the air. Those bullets come down, people. People die when people shoot off in the air sometimes. I'm not aware of any injuries that occurred here, but it's likely that could happen. So I don't want to play it again because we'll get taken down. But this particular group is all over social media, showing these videos everywhere. Now they're lighting automatic weapons off in the air. They're driving around with tints on their vehicle. They're not even worried about getting stopped by the cops. They're not worried about any of this. And they cruise not only through the Bronx into the industrial areas, but they went through residential areas of Queens the same night. And nothing's being done to stop them. And you can't tell me that 911 wasn't called dozens of times on this same group. But hey, you won't know that, right? Why? Because the NYPD encrypted the radio. Oh, why the NYPD encrypted the radio? Like I said, it wasn't for your safety. It was for perception management. It had nothing to do with the safety of police officers. It was all being done for perception management to keep reporters off the air. Because I'm sure if you were the duty chief that night overriding the city and you had to sit there and listen to this roving band of cars and the inept response by the NYPD, or knowing that you don't have the resources to actually stop this, I'm sure it's frustrating if you care. But who knows? Maybe you're just in 1PP and you're running an overtime brothel. Who knows? So to me, I think like as someone who worked in the NYPD in 18 years and lived for 18 years and lived in New York City for 42 years, I mean, I think I've never witnessed this where the cops were not around and there was no response to this, especially something like this. Hundreds of kids gathered and then they start rolling off automatic weapons in the air. In New York City, traditionally, you let a gun go in the air, there's going to be a cop there in a moment's notice.
Yeah, that's a great point, John. When I see this, I think a lot of Chicago, and how you see, if you watch a lot of videos from Chicago, you see these kids there, everybody's running around with a Glock with a switch on the back of it. And it's I'm no gun expert, but the switch is a mechanism on the back. It's attached to the I believe the slide of the gun. And what it does is it basically turns the semi-auto firearm into almost a fully automatic, So this is something that's been like a big thing in Chicago, because you see a lot of videos of these kids, in particular these drill rappers, right? Which also comes from Chicago and is a big problem in Chicago, because you have beefs between neighboring drill rapper crews, right? And the beef spills out into it's not just rap beef, but it's a street beef too, and and so on. But when I see these videos, I'm thinking, are we getting like that? Because when Chicago first started popping off, I always used to say that we would never let New York get to that point, get to the point where you're seeing guys just brazenly just walking around a neighborhood with all sorts of firearms in their hands, And when I'm seeing things like this, I gotta wonder if we're headed there ourselves. But if you recall, a couple months ago, there was a street takeover in Marlboro, Queens. So this has been an ongoing thing. Okay, if you remember the street takeover, it got out of hand when a security guard kind of approached them, and then they torched his vehicle, and then they got into fights with residents of the neighborhood. But anyway, these street takeovers have been going on for a while, and it's all over parts of Queens, and it's all over parts of the Bronx. Interestingly enough, those areas are the two areas that have the largest spikes in auto theft. Okay, so this is becoming a very big problem. Oh, you're muted, John.
Sorry, I was messing in the background. So, but it's been a big problem for a while, and nothing's being done. So this is the most recent. This is a clip from Phil Wong, New York City. Phil Wong was on the podcast prior to becoming a New York City councilman. He took over for Bob Holden.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make my own clip, but I was kind of busy this weekend, so I didn't get a chance to. And I meant to point this out when I watched it a few weeks ago. But listen to what Phil Wong asks about the car takeovers. He asked NYPD Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch. Tisch has LaPetri respond. And it's about these car takeovers. Like, he's complaining. He's like, I'm getting these calls all the time. And like, I feel like nothing's being done. What's being done? And you just listen to LaPetri's response. It was honestly, I was hysterical laughing when I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, are you kidding? When I heard this, I was like, this is your response. So to me, it appears that the NYPD has no plan in place to prevent these car takeovers from happening. And they don't even want to deal with it. They just want to pretend like it's all good. So this is the exchange right here. My apologies that the clip is small. Again, I didn't make it. I usually like to do the wide ones, but the substance is there. So take a listen.
Public safety is the first thing my constituents expect from the city. In the Middle Village, Maspeth, Glendale, Elmhurst, Rico Park, and Ridgewood, residents tell me they value the NYPD. They know the officers in the 104th, 110th, and 112th precincts by name, and they appreciate the work that is being done under difficult conditions. My questions today will focus on whether the 104th, 110, and 112 precincts are properly staffed, from patrol to the detective squads, and how NYPD and the Transportation Bureau plan to sustain proactively quality of life and Vision Zero enforcements. My first question, for each of the 104th, 110, and 112 precincts, can you provide the current, authorized, and actual uniform head counts?
We'll get that to you after this hearing.
Okay, thank you. Next issue is that we have a lot of car meetups in our district in which dozens of cars meet up, whether they make donuts, loud music, and they travel around from district to district. They often start at the Maspeth industrial areas and they go all over the city. I get these calls, whether it's 2 a.m. or whether it's 4 a.m, and what is being done to effectively combat these issues?
Our Chief of Department, Chief Michael Petrie, will speak to the plans for addressing car meetups.
Okay.
Good morning.
Yeah, thank you. Morning.
So as tasked to the Chief of Patrol and the borough commanders across the city, not just in Patrol Borough Queens North, we have a substantial car meet plan that is reviewed daily. And before the weekend on Friday, all the information, the intelligence that we were getting is then operationalized for deployment, not just within one precinct, but across the city. We also know specific bridges that some of these car meets will then actually leave the car meet or come into a specific area, notably Queens North. Just last night, I'll give you an example, though not a car meet, but a substantial vehicular crime happened in the 109 precinct, and within 15 minutes, those individuals were driving to the Bronx. We had intelligence of what bridge they were going over. We had the intelligence of where they were going to end up, and they were apprehended and arrested on a vehicular-related crime. The same intelligence and the same deployment is done for car meets. And just one other thing, the 311 and the 911 data that we get prior to, historically, is analyzed. And again, we are deploying to locations that we've known in the past have had those types of meetups.
So what he said there was, which was absolutely ridiculous. Wong brings up, he's like, first, again, he asks her about, how many cops I have, like every other council member. She refuses to answer, whatever. They move on to, what are you doing about these car meetups? She's like, well, I'm going to have LePetri answer that. And LePetri just basically starts tap dancing. He goes, well, what we did is we had intelligence from someone and we locked someone up for an auto-related crime. So, Chief, what you're telling me is you're doing nothing about the car meetups, right, Chief? Like, what are we doing? What is an auto-related vehicle crime? Yeah, exactly. Trust me, bro. That's exactly what it was. So he's like, the same intelligence and the same thing we use for that auto-related crime arrest that we made is the same type we use for the car meetups. So essentially saying he's doing nothing for the car meetups. Now, I speak to a lot of staffers of council people, like in the background. And one thing that they tell me is that the residents often give them a lot of good intelligence, right? Like, hey, there's this car meetup. This kid runs it. They're going over here tonight, and then they're going to go over there. And then, so what do? They pass the info off to the commanding officers. And now, sometimes the commanding officer probably couldn't find toilet paper in the bathroom stall to wipe his own ass. But other times, if you do have a competent commanding officer, which is rare these days, it's a very rare occurrence these days. But when you do have a competent commanding officer, a lot of times they don't have the ability to stop it because they have 3-4 cars on patrol. And what are you going to do when there's hundreds of people coming down to your neighborhood? You need this is where you need that like borough type response or that citywide type response for things like this. This is where the precinct is really overwhelmed to kind of handle something of this nature. And that's not happening here clearly, because clearly what Petrie did was tap dance. They have no plan in place to stop the car takeovers. And the intelligence, even when they get it, they really don't know what to do. That's what I heard from that. They don't really know how to stop this, what's going to be politically correct, politically incorrect. They're just pretending like it's not happening, and they're on top of it. Like, did you hear anything there? Do you see anything that's happening at these car meetups that like, are you aware of anything that's happening? Because I'm not. I think they're just absolutely letting them happen. You know, Kaz and Shell were on it for a while, and they were kind of devoting resources to it. And something happened, and they stopped. And I'm not sure if it was a vehicular pursuit when she said, I'm not allowing you to chase the cars anymore. I'm not sure what it was. I'm sure it was something along those lines. But there's got to be a way to there's got to be a way to handle this. I mean, we have the drone technology. If you're properly staffed at the levels, there's no reason you can't block roads and streets and identify the problem vehicles and seize them.
Yeah, you know what I think it is? I think there was a couple articles about the chases that the khaki pants guys were involved in, and I think they were getting too much heat from that. And Chell and Kaz said they were doing something about it, and we saw a couple of videos from Kaz about it. But if you think about it, those takeovers are still happening. So how much of an impact did they really have on it? And it's not just Councilman Wong that's been complaining about it either. Like John said, a couple others have also brought up the street takeovers, and that includes Vicky Palladino, of course, because Marlboro, Queens is in, I think that area is, if not her district, but if it's not her district, I think her district certainly borders it, because she covers around Queens Village and what's north of Queens Village. Well, that entire northeastern area of Queens. But what was I gonna say? I kind of forgot my thought for a second there. Yeah, I don't think the department has much of a plan for this, because I don't think they have the personnel for it. Because remember, we're hearing that CRT is broken up, and they're either being sent back to the borough or they're being sent back to these precincts. And Tish her own pet project is this Q teams, and she loves talking about precision policing, right? Precision policing essentially means they're using the data to kind of move resources around as they need it, and which is a lot different from what Chell and Kaz were doing in that they have a dedicated unit that they would assign to all of these things. And we've criticized the CRT because a lot of those cops were inexperienced, and then Chell himself was letting them run around and be cowboys when it was really going to get him in trouble. You can't conduct a chase in Midtown Manhattan and not think that you might, New York City being as congested as it is, you're not going to cause the inadvertent death of a civilian, But at least they had a dedicated unit that seemed to be taking these street takeovers seriously. I most definitely don't think we have the manpower now to do it, especially as these Q teams have become a thing in the precincts. And by the way, these street people are underestimating just how big these street takeovers are, because I can tell you for a fact that on my block, it doesn't get that big, but we have guys who do donuts in the intersections all the time, and they do donuts it doesn't matter what time of day it is, right? It could be midday, early morning, late evening, midnight. They still come and they still doing donuts. And it's not just on my block, but you can hear it on the adjacent blocks because you can hear it at night when the tires are screeching and they're doing those donuts. So this has become a very big thing in New York. And I think we're following in the footsteps of not just Chicago, but California, where these street takeovers have been a big thing for a long time. And they seem to get to massive proportions over there where you get hundreds of people. And again, the cops are powerless because you see one or two cars show up versus like hundreds of people.
No, I mean, and so, you know, when they go back and they tell you like, oh yeah, you know, we're at 35,000 cops, we're at proper staffing levels, we're at the allotted amount, hiring's fine, there's no issue, and you flash back just 6 months ago when Tish was saying that they're at crisis level in the NYPD, and then, you know, all of a sudden they weren't at crisis level anymore and everything's fine. Like, what happened? What changed overnight? You know, and you got to sit there and say there is a huge staffing crisis that's being covered up not only by the NYPD and by the mayor's office. Now we have two mayors, right? It was first it was Eric Adams, now it's Zohran Mamdani, but it's also the mainstream media as well. They refuse to report on this topic, but yet here you go. Mamdani signs emergency order to block concerts, food, festivals at New York City parks during FIFA World Cup. So the World Cup is coming to New York. Not really. It's coming to Jersey, right? It's coming to Jersey. It's going to the old Meadowlands. What's it called? MetLife Stadium, right? MetLife Stadium in Jersey. There's going to be 8 World Cup games. They're running from June 11th to July 19th. So if we were properly staffed, I've never seen anything like this. You sign an emergency order to block concerts, food festivals at New York City parks during the FIFA World Cup. Why is that happening? Because they don't have the NYPD manpower to cover it. Right? And you sit there and you go, well, all right, there's going to be a lot of people coming into the city. Okay. Isn't that a great time that concerts and food festivals and all this stuff can make money? Why do we care that our hotels are going to be flooded with people? Like, that should be, I thought we were the city that never sleeps. That should be a common occurrence. And again, you know, it's right over the river, MetLife Stadium. So what do you expect that you need the more cops? Like, the actual event is occurring in New Jersey, but yet you're saying you don't have enough cops because of that event to just deal with daily life in New York City. But yet let's pretend we're at the allotted head count and everything's fine. Like, there's this lie that's just happening, and we don't point it out when we look at the NYPD as a whole. But then when you break off, then you could say, well, we don't have the manpower to deal with it. So when FIFA comes in, you know, we got to shut New York City down basically for the summer. You know, you can't make money. Businesses can't make money. We don't want any good events happening here. Is it really because of FIFA? I don't think so. I don't think it has anything to do with that at all. I think because FIFA is not even being held in New York City. I mean, am I looking at this wrong, Marlon? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, the World Cup, 8 games, MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, right by Lyndhurst, what I just mentioned earlier. I forget the exact, East Rutherford, New Jersey. What the hell does that have to do in New York City? We're not, you know what I mean? Like, we're not policing that event. We're not worried about terrorism around that event. We're not doing bag checks. We're not doing any of that stuff. Why are we shut down in New York City because of an event that's occurring in New Jersey? Oh, people are going to stay at our hotels. Okay. Isn't that always the case? Isn't it always the case that in the summer people come to New York City? Should we expect this when the World Cup isn't there? And so think about that. June 11th to July 19th. That is peak outdoor season in New York City. Peak outdoor season. After that portion from July 19th, you basically got a month or two left of where it's like the summer, like kind of like where you're going to get that travel weather. But once September hits, you're not getting the tourism because kids are back in school, people are back to work, people aren't doing their summer travel. So they're really just cutting New York City summer short is what they're doing. saying we don't have enough manpower. Like, what are your thoughts about this move? Like, does this prove what I'm saying? Like, I believe that this is showing exactly how little manpower there is in the NYPD. Like, what do you think about this?
Well, you know what I find funny is they've been advertising the World Cup as though New York plays a significant part in it, you know? And so this is ironic to me because if you're advertising the World Cup as coming to New York also, then you think businesses would want to, businesses and whoever else would want to take advantage of it and have like the, concerts too. So now you're telling me that you can't have concerts even though you're advertising the World Cup as a big event for New York and a big moneymaker for New York. And there's a whole lot of irony in that one, yeah. But I have to agree too that it's probably because they don't have the manpower for it. Because what do we see happen in the summertime? We see All Out happens in the summertime, and even with All Out, there's only so far you can go with that before you, number one, start, guys start breaking the overtime cap, or two, you start pulling guys from units that need them in the summertime as well. So if squad guys are out doing All Out, then they're not working on their cases. Okay, so there's a limit to the amount of people you could pull for All Out. After a certain amount of time, you're gonna run out of the house mouse in 1PP to put out there. And and we've seen this before, by the way. All Out using squad detectives who have cases that they should be working on. So I definitely think that's part of it. And also about All Out, one of the reasons a lot of guys are leaving is because not only is their overtime maxed out because of things like All Out, and they figure, why am I staying when I'm never going to see this overtime again? But a lot of guys are leaving because they're not seeing their families. Okay, and if you're certainly spending all this time in All Out on overtime, after spending half the year on overtime as well, and you're older and you're already frustrated that you're not seeing your kids, a lot of guys are who hit the 20-year mark are saying, you know what, I've had enough, and that's it for me. So All Out is also a problem when it comes to the attrition rate. So I definitely agree with you, John. I think that's the reasoning behind what we're seeing here.
Yeah, Joe Mango. I usually do this after, but he donated $100 to the channel. He says, John, how'd you hear about the Lyndhurst thing? Also, I meant to ask you guys, is the Eduardo St. Fort guy related to Derby St. Fort? I don't believe he's related to Derby St. Fort. I could be wrong. Derby hasn't said anything about it. I could ask him. I don't really know. To me, it doesn't really matter if he is or he isn't. But I'm not aware that he is or he isn't. I don't really know. I'd be lying. So I don't even want to take a guess at it. The other thing, Lyndhurst, my brother-in-law's from Lyndhurst, so I know people in Lyndhurst. All the old school Italians from North Jersey. For the record, I can't stand that part of Jersey. I hate it. It's like a more congested part of New York to me. It's not really like Jersey. It's not like a slower down speed lifestyle. I hate the roads there. Bombarded by highways and commercial traffic. I'm like, just live in New York, man. You're paying just as high taxes. The property's just as expensive. They got a good view of the city though over there, So it's you can see Manhattan right over the water. So that's how I know. So but I mean, but when I watch that, I'm like, that is in Lyndhurst. Like, that's basically Lyndhurst, right? East Rutherford, Lyndhurst, in that busy area. What does this have to do with New York? Like, we should be eating off of this. This is the time, like, Super Bowl's going on, and we're getting the Super Bowl in East Rutherford, New Jersey. It's not happening, but I'm just saying, if that's happening, you would expect your businesses to profit significantly from that. We wouldn't hinder our businesses. We wouldn't say, hey, look, we're not going to give any permits in the park. We know you usually make your money in our parks in the summer, but this summer we can't. Like, you wouldn't do that if you were a mayor, if you were a frugal mayor. Why would you want to do that? Why? Because it's more tax revenue for you. The more money those businesses make, it's the more taxes you bring in. It's the more money you could use for your BS social programs and whatever else is going on. Like any mayor, I don't care what you are. If you're a socialist or a far right capitalist and you don't believe in government at all, you want your businesses to make money. You want that tax revenue. You don't even want it. You need it. So you're shutting down probably one of your most profitable windows during the summer, and you're just going to shut it down and take it out. I mean, to me, it just speaks volumes about where the NYPD is. It's the same thing with the whole, oh, yeah, crime is down. Everything's good. Everything's good. We're making history. And yet every time you turn around, there's a police-involved shooting. There's people shot. There's babies being shot. There's people being murdered. There's people being pushed in front of subway cars. It doesn't make sense to me. This is the clearest sign in mainstream media that there's a problem, because mainstream media refuses to report on what's happening at the precincts. I don't want to put anybody in a bad spot, so I'm not going to do it. But I personally, I want to go around to all the precincts and just watch them after roll call.
Yes.
I just don't want to do it because I don't want to put that information out there. But it needs to get out there. It needs to get out there that the precincts aren't being staffed properly. And the reason that it needs to get out there is because not only is it a danger for the police officers, if you call 911 in that precinct, it's a dangerous situation for you. I'm friends with a lot of firefighters, and they tell me they don't even wait for PD anymore. They tell me often they're on emotionally disturbed person jobs where they're calling for PD and they're not showing up. They're on scenes of fires where places needs to be secured, and the NYPD's taking forever to get there. Vehicular accidents, they're just leaving. I told you I was on the BQE. I picked my friend up, fire lieutenant. I pick him up from the airport. We hit like a little bit of traffic on the BQE. I'm like, what the hell is that? We passed by this car burnt out on the BQE in the left lane. Like, it's not moved over to the side of the road. Car's still smoking. So it looks like FD was just there. I'm like, dude, what is that? I was like, they didn't wait for the cops. He's like, bro, we don't even wait for the cops anymore. He's like, they take so long that it is what it is. We're getting other calls. Like, we can't just sit there for 4 hours. He's like, so they just left a burning, smoking, smoldering car on the BQE that with traffic, no cars around it. Think if the BQE opens up for a minute, right? And that traffic isn't there. Think about how dangerous that is. It's a car with no lights on at night in the left lane. Somebody's going to just drive bang right into it. People are going to die as a result of that. You would never leave that in the past being a city worker, because you know how vulnerable you're leaving yourself open to liability, and you know how vulnerable you're leaving the public open to. Like, that is a surefire accident should traffic alleviate around that time. When it frees up later on at night, whether it's a drunk driver, whether it's an elderly person, whether it's someone that's just distracted, they're going to hit into that vehicle. But we're losing a lot of that too. And there's a big complaint with that from dispatchers, from EMS workers, and from firefighters, that they're calling for police on times that the police should be there, and they're not coming. And then they're just handling the situation on their own. And that's leaving people in a really vulnerable situation. So then when you watch, you're like, why wouldn't auto thefts be coming up? Why wouldn't there be huge auto theft rings in New York? Everybody's driving around with these fancy cars. Doesn't seem to appear to be anyone that has the manpower or the care to even go after it. And the same thing with these car meetups. They know the cops aren't going to do anything, so they're just like, whatever. I'm not going to do anything. They don't have the manpower. It is what it is. There's so many of us that, what are they going to do? They can't do nothing. We're taking over the streets. These are our streets. And if you remember the time of Kaz when he started going online, when it's his first little hint of making videos and all that, he started doing that, and those kids were bold as shit. They were just coming back making videos. We run these streets, not you. And so, like, they're 100%. Like, I'm saying right now, everything that you're seeing, it's all perception management, and it's all of the bad stuff is a result of the fact that if they're at the allotted head count in the NYPD, then Jessica Tisch and Michael Petrie should step down because they're horrible managers. But I'm saying right now, I don't believe they're anywhere near the allotted headcount. I think that that whole thing is a bunch of garbage. I think that is just as heavily manipulated as the crime statistics.
Yeah, a lot. There's a lot in there. I struggle with that idea too about talking about the precinct manpower and how many how many patrol cars they have out there, because if we openly we can't name a precinct, because then all the perps, and I'm sure there are perps who also watch the show, are gonna all know that that precinct is short of manpower. But at the same time, I don't think these perps are stupid, and I think they themselves are watching all of that. But the thing I want to encourage though is these council people, right? Councilman Wong, Vicky Paladino, whoever. I mean, they themselves have the power to go in and look at the roll call. Okay, so what you guys should do, I mean, is walk into roll call. You know the times roll call is done. Go into roll call and see how much officers are there yourself. You don't need to wait for Tish to give you those numbers and to give you those fudged numbers, because she's not going to tell you the truth. Okay, you need to go there yourself, or you need to send people yourself. And if you want to send me, I'll happily volunteer to do that, by the way. But I'm me walking in there just from the finest, they aren't going to allow me to see it. But I'll happily do that on your behalf, okay? Because I think this is a big deal, and we keep talking about it, that manpower is the heart of a lot of the problems in the NYPD. Okay, Tish recently proposed a revamp of the in-service training, where she wants to send officers for like a week long in-service training at a police academy. And we talked on the show how that's she can't do that. It's impossible to do it the way she's saying she wants to do it, because first of all, if you're spending a week at the academy, that's a week that the patrol is going to be short of cops, right? Patrol or whichever unit these cops are in are going to be short. And what do we know already is that the department itself is already short. So you're going to take these guys, put them in in-service training for a week. Now, the other problem is, what exactly is going to be that training? Is it going to be, are you going to be watching videos in the academy? Is it going to be mainly lectures at the academy? Because a proper training would mean you're going through tactics, and you're going through you're practicing exercises with other members of your squad and your partner, right? And there is not enough. First of all, there's not enough training personnel to do that, and there's not enough. A week isn't even enough time for all these cops to go through these tactical training exercises. So the problem is that you need adequate manpower so that training can be an ongoing thing in the department, and that if you take out a couple guys from patrol, that'll be fine, because there's enough manpower there that you can take a foot post and throw them in a sector car for a week. Okay, but you don't have that right now. Okay, and that's also another issue, because guys in transit are being burdened with this mandatory overtime to the point where, as we said before, they're not going home and seeing their families, and that contributes to them burning out and again wanting to leave as soon as they hit that 20-year mark. So, the manpower it cuts to the heart of a lot of the problems in the NYPD. And the manpower is something they don't want to admit that we have a problem with, and it's something that I think Tish's entire agenda with the precision policing is meant to go around, because she knows we don't have enough manpower. So the plan is to use data to assign the limited resources that we do have, to keep moving them around like chess pieces on a board, So I think her entire agenda is built around obfuscating the fact that we don't have enough cops on the job.
I mean, I don't know what to say. I really don't. Like the thing is, I don't even think you have to attend roll call to do that. I would never even do that. I would never even walk in the precinct. I think you could just sit outside and observe it. You could see who brings the car back and who takes the car. And I think it's if you have an organized theft ring or you have an organized criminal ring, I mean, the surveillance that could be done on the NYPD at precincts to understand what's happening, it's so easy today. And
Yeah.
that is because we're not everywhere anymore before. That omnipresence in the NYPD is lost. And that omnipresence had a lot to do with the manpower. You might not know that kid was just a rookie. You might know he was a rookie, but guess what? He's on that corner. And then you got an experienced anti-crime guy there. And then you got a patrol guy over here. And then you got a conditions guy over there. And you got a SNU guy. And you got a Burr guy. And the precincts were flooded, So that
And
omnipresence deterred a lot of behavior. When you're running
Yep,
bare
yep.
bones operations, you're 100% emboldening all of this. And then the other thing he told shootings are down. Brooklyn yesterday, right on, one dead, one critically injured. I think a 36-year-old riddled with bullets, 6:00 in the afternoon yesterday in Brooklyn. I think the 50-year-old also struck numerous times. I think he's the one in critical condition, if I'm not mistaken. But, that's the other thing. Like the shootings, like, again, we've said it over and over again. Maybe victims are down, maybe murders are down, but the amount of times guns are going off in the air is not being recorded properly. So what we spoke about earlier, that was a clear reckless endangerment, right? It wasn't technically a shooting, right? The guy's driving, they're doing donuts in the car, guys lets an automatic weapon go off in the air. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Now, reckless in nature. He didn't intend to shoot anybody, right? So that is a reckless event. But think about that as a member of the public. Not counted in a shooting, even though bullets flew. And now I get it because there was really no intent. It was completely reckless. That bullet comes down and strikes someone. There was no intent to strike that person. It was completely reckless. So I understand that. But did those two automatic weapons not go off on the streets of the Bronx that evening? Yeah, they did. And they probably went off in other areas of the city too, probably in Queens. So that happened, and that's not recorded, and that's one thing. But the other thing we've been showing you on here time and time again is when the situation's completely different. You have video of someone pointing a firearm at someone and shooting at them and missing. What are those reports being taken as? Reckless endangerment. That is absolutely not reckless endangerment. That is a felony attempted assault too. In my opinion, it's an attempted homicide. It's an attempted murder. You can't tell me you're firing a gun at someone with the intent to hurt them. You're intending to seriously kill or injure them. So that's the other problem, right? It's like we're consistently told that shootings are down and all these guns are being confiscated off the street. And I've been saying it since I started doing this. I said, the more guns you have on the street and the more guns you're going to take off of it. And it's not an accomplishment when you're getting all these illegal firearms off the street. It means that in New York City, perpetrators feel emboldened enough to carry illegal firearms. And the fact of the matter is the perps are emboldened to carry legal firearms, and legal gun owners don't have that same feeling of empowerment with these gun-free zones and all of this other anti-2A legislation against people who actually abide by the law. So there's like this empowerment of criminals and this emasculation of the working man, the common man, the person who actually is carrying a firearm solely for protection, not to cause harm to anyone.
Yeah. We talked about this before that I think that that's going to happen even more. There's going to be more propaganda and more spin and narrative because they don't have anything else, and they don't have anything else in the face of a widening budget gaps. And widening budget gaps means less resources. And I suspect one of the reasons why you don't have enough cops on the street is because they can't afford it. Now they already told us that the academy classes are going to be cut down. But I think in general, the reason why the manpower overall is the way it is because they can't afford it. And I think the reason why they want the senior guys to leave and to retire is to shrink payroll. And I've talked about it many times. The clues are all there. Look at Nassau. Nassau County, I think it's Nassau, not Suffolk, but they're basically paying guys to leave, to retire now. And it's different out there because the guys like the job, and again, you have to pay them to leave, right? So it's a little different. But the point that they're trying to do there, the point of all of that is, again, to shrink costs, because expenses are going up, inflation is going up, and it's largely because of the wider circumstances in the world right now, and the shrinking budgets of these municipalities, right? So I suspect that New York City can't afford cops, right? So when you have that shrinking budget, unlimited resources, what's there left to do but to lie and use propaganda and spin and try and change your perception of what's actually happening and what you actually see going on. And I think that's happening here in New York, and I think it's going to happen, if it hasn't already, in other big cities, big blue cities across this country, because they don't have anything left. And by the way, I went back and forth with somebody on the internet over the weekend about this, because let me see if I can pull it up, because there was an article about Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. He let me see if I can pull it up. He basically is hiring a New York City PR firm to polish up California's image. So we talk about California being in the same or similar shape as New York City, and you can see that with the out migration over there, because a lot of people are leaving California for Nevada, they're leaving it for Idaho, and they're leaving it for Arizona. So California is in a pretty bad shape. And again, we talk about how things like these street takeovers are really following in the footsteps of California, because that's been going on for a while in California, right? So they're in the same shape as us, but here you see it brazenly, right? That he needs to hire a PR firm, because they're in such a position where they can't fix the real problems because of limited resources. And as we've talked before, fixing the problem, doing the right thing, means no crumbs for their cronies, for their associates, and all the rest of the people in the progressive industrial complex. So what's left to do but to use spin and narrative to change your perception of things? So we should expect this to get even bigger as certainly as we head into things like the summertime, and as things get even more out of hand in the cities and in New York City. Oh, unmute, John. Unmute.
Yeah, sorry. But that's amazing. That's exactly what's occurring. That is exactly what it is. Is like they're just attempting to wordplay and have all this media spin about what's happening. Look, you just feel unsafe. It's because of social media. It's your perception. It's not the reality. And it's like, no, it's actually the reality. Even here, like even Brandon, Brandon Johnson out of Chicago. I told you I sat in on that conference with the Vera Institute. They invited me. It was the one and only time, because I think my questions, I only asked like pretty basic questions, but I guess they don't like questions. But I sat in on the all black mayors conference, and they all said the same thing: perception versus reality. Crime is down, shootings are down, Meanwhile, I'm like, and the question I asked, I said, you're saying public safety is in like this great stance in all of your cities, but why are you having a problem recruiting and retaining officers? None of them answered that question. They just said what they were doing. Oh, we're raising salaries for officers. We've had large classes, all the same spin. But here's Brandon Johnson when just even he doesn't want them to be called teen mobs anymore. Listen to what he says here.
That's not appropriate. We're not talking about mob actions. I didn't say that.
What happens?
Hold on a second, okay? Respectfully, these large gatherings, just hold on a second, y'all. I promise you, we have time to talk. It's important that we speak of these dynamics in an appropriate way.
See, and that's what they do. They control what's happening, right? It wasn't a teen mob. It wasn't a takeover. It was a large gathering. Or what does Zohar Mamdani call it? It was a First Amendment activity. It's not a mob. It wasn't a mob action. It wasn't a terrorist attack. It was a First Amendment activity. Right? And First Amendment activities, counterterrorism has no business being there. The police have no business arresting people at First Amendment activities. It's just a large gathering. That's public relations. That's media spin. That's what you're hearing. That's what Gavin Newsom is taking $19 million to get. Just how do I present the crime situation better to the public and more friendly to the media? How do I present better in the media than actually fix the problem? There's no care. We don't want to fix the problem. We don't care about fixing the problem. Always on Company Time says, it's not so much the manpower, but the additional admin work cops are tasked with, from video tagging level 1, level 2 encounters, vehicle stop reports, 90 Frank 2 reports, digital activity logs, takes too long. So what he's saying is, now I don't know what command you work in, and you might in fact be right as far as, but I'd love to know what the amount of vehicles you're turning out is. What's the amount of sectors you're turning out? And I agree that the paperwork is insane and redundant and overwhelming for anyone. But I also don't believe the NYPD will give you the allotted time or care enough to give you the allotted time either. I worked for the NYPD for a long time. I was a patrol sergeant. I would come in after my shift, an hour after my shift from handling another job, and I'd have 5 or 6 49s to do. So I don't think that the NYPD really cares about giving you the proper resources. And they were telling me, oh, yeah, you can't get overtime either. I'm like, well, what the hell? But I just did it anyway. I just took what do you want me to do? I have to do all this stuff. I can't do it during my tour. What am I supposed to do? And so, what I hear from the people that I know, the bosses, the cops, the commanding officers, is they're turning out bare bones compared to when I was a cop. So that's not good. It's not, and then you add in all of this other administrative work on top of it. So, and if it turns out to be the case that in fact it's all of the other nonsense, the all outs, the mobile field force, the paperwork, and in fact the NYPD is at the allotted head count, then I go back to what I originally said. Mike LePetri and Jessica Tisch will go down in history as the worst management team ever in NYPD history. Because you should be able to notice what's happening, what's your stick points, and be able to, if you're so data driven and you're so analytical, you should be able to alleviate those stick points. You should be able to keep that machine flowing. Again, I don't believe they're at their allotted head count, and I do also agree with you though that you guys have way too much paperwork, way too much administrative tasks. And I feel the same for the bosses as well, the lieutenants and the patrol sergeants. I think there's just way too much administrative work being divvied out. I mean, for years I'd listen to just give it to the desk, just give it to the patrol sergeant, just give it to this, just give it to that, and no actual care as to if you could actually do it. Same thing with what you have to carry, what you're authorized to carry. They never cared if you could actually carry it. You know what I mean? It's like how much stuff are you going to put on our belt? How much stuff are we going to be required to wear to details? We're basically lugging luggage around at this point. It's like, what is this effective? So I hear you. Definitely part of the problem, but it definitely exposes the inept management that's occurring. right? And I'm not just saying it's occurring under Zohran Mamdani. It clearly occurred under Eric Adams. A lot of you guys just liked it because you were making a lot of money, but not realizing that you weren't making money because they care about you and they want you to make money. You were making money because you are being led by highly incompetent individuals that did not care about their job. They were worried about everything else except actually doing what they were assigned to do.
Yeah, just to go back quickly on that PR firm, you know what struck me as interesting is that PR firm. This is the one that's working with Newsom right now. They were also involved in the scamdemic and trying to convince people to, go get it. But what was I gonna say? Yeah, I agree, John. There's too much paperwork in the job, and funny enough, I thought, when we finally kind of moved into the digital age, with those cell phones and with the updated databases, I thought that would mean less paperwork, especially when everybody got the cell phone. I thought that would be actually less paperwork, but it turns out it's even more now, than when we were there, than when we were on patrol. And I think one of the problems is there's also no decision making. Okay, everything is just, like you said, pass it on to the desk or give it to the squad, yeah, and instead of making a decision then and there. And I just think that makes the place unpleasant, and again, it contributes to guys just wanting to retire. It just degrades the quality of job life. And one other thing is I also agree with the utility belt. I see that comment in the KB NYC. Yeah, I'm seeing. I look at guys' utility belt, gun belt, and I'm seeing like so much crap on there. I'm like, soon you're gonna be going on patrol with like a military backpack or something, like a rucksack or something. Yeah, it's a little much. And what's also interesting about that though is that when you see guys in tussles with perps trying to put them in handcuffs, you see all those tools on their belt, and they're not using any one of those tools. I see a lot of times those tasers in the gun belt when you really should be using the taser rather than getting into a wrestling match with a perp, and with the taser, the asp, the mace, it's all on the gun belt, and instead of being used by those cops. And if they used it, they're gonna have to fill out more paperwork, which is that new stupid TRI report that we never had to do when I was on patrol. But it's again, the problem is all this paperwork that they're having to deal with, and all of it just makes the quality of job life terrible and contributes to the attrition rate.
My timing's off. I almost kept muting again. Without Eric, my timing's like completely thrown off. But so there was actually another shooting in East Harlem yesterday. I want to bring the press conference up, and that was a police involved shooting, and it was outside of a Fresh Market in East Harlem, and it was a 53-year-old man. He got into a dispute with workers at the Fresh Market, and he returns with a large knife. Right? And then, is that an emotionally disturbed person? In my opinion, I think it is, right? But you're not going to hear anything about it because it's looked like more of like a street crime aspect than that. And so you don't hear any calls for Mamdani's Department of Community Safety and how the cops didn't respond properly. So the guy shows up, he's at the Fresh Market, they lock him out, he's got a knife, they call the cops. Cops come, brandishes his knife there. You see him with the knife, clear as day, right? And what happens is when the cops get there, he attacks them with the knife. I'll bring in the NYPD press conference and what they said. But to me, this is the scenario. Like, what's different than this scenario than me calling in an emotionally disturbed person and expecting the Department of Community Safety to respond? Because to me, this looks like an emotionally disturbed person with a knife. And this is exactly the premise and the idea of who this Department of Community Safety would be responding to. But again, we don't know anything about it. You know, I've asked some real basic questions from critics and supporters of the Department of Community Safety, and I haven't gotten one response from anyone. I asked Zohran Mamdani himself, haven't got a response. And the questions I asked were simple. What hours do they operate? Are they going to operate as our current mental health, like our secondary mental health backup public safety system in the Be Heard operates? Is it going to be banker's hours with weekends off and holidays off? Or is it going to be a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week response? We had a shooting recently that a lot of politicians, public advocate, city council, they're all condemning. It was a shooting that the family actually called the other resources, not 911, and it took a 2-day response for them to come, and they basically did nothing. And then 2 days later, the family's left with calling 911 anyway, and then the family member charged police officers with a knife, leaving the officers no options but to deploy their firearms. What's different here than if a family member calls on the behalf? To me, there's absolutely nothing different about this shooting. This is a pure example of what Mamdani is saying that the Department of Community Safety should be responding to. And the only thing that I see that happens here that's different, if there wasn't a police response, is one, Department of Community Safety doesn't respond in time because, again, I don't believe that they are going to operate 24/7, 7 days a week. I think they're going to have banker's hours. They're going to operate with weekends off, holidays off. And so they're ultimately going to wind up relying on the NYPD. But let's pretend that they'll have a 24/7 response. Let's pretend that. I'm going to say there is no way they're going to respond in the same amount of time that it takes the NYPD respond. There's going to be a much longer response time involved there. And the only thing I think that happens here is either that guy leaves and he's gone and they can't find him, or he winds up stabbing one of them. You know, I don't understand. Like, this is a perfect example to take and say, what is the Department of Community Safety? This is their field, right? This is their wheelhouse. This is what you're saying they're going to handle. How does this operate now? Do they respond here? If so, what's their response times? What days do they operate? Who's making the determination that they have them? Do they have leeway on yes or not, we're going to respond to this job? Because currently under the Be Heard program, that's what I'm hearing from dispatchers and the 911 dispatchers. They're saying they pick and choose what jobs they go. They're oftentimes not working, and they work banker's hours, and they're off the weekends and the holidays. So ultimately, they're always just sending the NYPD anyway.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't see that one, but I we talk about it many times that there's no way they can properly respond to emotionally disturbed persons in a unit filled with civilians that don't have the kind of training that a uniformed police officer does. I see Zohan tippy-toeing around that issue right now in the fact that he's kind of his Office of Community Safety is very it's a shadow of what he proposed in the Department of Public Safety when he was a candidate. And I don't think that'll ever come to fruition because it's just not going to work. Again, we talk about cops not having enough training themselves. So now you're gonna create a unit of civilians who don't have not even 25% of the inadequate training that cops do have now, and they don't have defensive weapons. They don't have, again, they don't know about tactics. They don't have protective equipment to defend against a EDP with a weapon. So I don't see how that's ever going to happen. And if you're watching right now, Zohan, I dared you a couple months ago to do it, because I'm saying if you were actually to go forward with this idea, it's going to be the end of you as a mayor, because the first civilian that gets killed on there killed or harmed, the media will never stop talking about it. Okay, even though we know Tish controls the media in the city. Okay, if a civilian gets killed there, I just don't see any way that you're going to be able to prevent the media from covering it. And I think that will be the end of you as a mayor, because plenty of people have talked about how it's very unwise to do it. And I suspect even in the NYPD, he's getting pushback from the executives right now, and how if he were to do that, civilians would be harmed. So I think it's a dumb idea, and I don't think he's actually going to do it. But if I can for a second, I saw a couple comments in there about the equipment. Yeah, I don't see the comment now, but I saw one from KB about saying that, yeah, the cops have too much equipment. And I also see one from someone mentioning cops down south have these vests, right? Have external vests with all their equipment on it. And I got to tell you how much of a pet peeve that is of mine, that I keep seeing in law enforcement right now. And that is again, we talk about having too much equipment on your belt, but this is equally as ridiculous when you have these vests with all sorts of equipment on it. I don't know how you can be an effective cop when you have so much obstacles in front of you, right? Like this. To me, this is so impractical, right? But believe it or not, you see a lot of guys down south, especially with it on. Like, you'll have a taser in front of you. And again, it's impractical because if the taser is in the front of your vest, that also means I think the perps can, possibly remove it from you as well. So I think this is a major problem in law enforcement. But, just to talk about the NYPD side, right? Again, my other pet peeve is that, like, things like these stupid jackets. This jacket, if you're a cop on patrol right now, right, and you're a young cop, get rid of this stupid jacket, please. The stupid academy jacket, because there's a lot of bulk in this that you don't need, and this looks ugly in due time when the pockets start stretching. And first of all, this jacket kind of overextends over your gun belt, right? And that's a problem if you need to quickly reach any of the tools on your waist, right? But also, like I said, it's bulky, and you want to have as little bulk as possible, okay? Because you need hands to be free, and you need to be able to move in that uniform and quickly react. Sometimes, like we saw with the video of the EDP in Queens, Chakrabarty, who approached the officers with a knife as soon as they entered the premises, right? You need to be able to react quickly and move quickly. And to me, when you have, things like this, NYPD isn't this, we're not at this point yet, but I'm seeing some public safety guys walk around with their vests outside and things like their radio in the vest. And I think that doesn't help you. But you need to be able to move quickly and react quickly and to reach your tools on your waist quickly. And having a bulky jacket like this that extends over your gun belt is going to hurt you, okay? And it's going to slow down your response time. And in an event where you walk in and the EDP or whoever is coming at you, you need to be able to react quickly. And in such an event, you may need to reach for your firearm quickly. And this jacket, I can tell you from experience, doesn't help you, okay? So get rid of this crap and get yourself this jacket, okay? Now, in wintertime, this jacket might be a little light, but you could counter that by wearing, some thermals underneath, or wearing the sweater underneath. But if your undergarments are proper, they'll make up for the fact that this jacket is a little bit lighter. But again, this, in my opinion, this stupid academy jacket does not help you. So
I hated that jacket. I chucked it. So some Hortense1234 says, not true. Always wore the 3/4 jacket. Had no problem getting to my belt or chasing someone. 3/4 jacket's a lot different though than the jacket that Marlon's showing. I actually did wear the 3/4 jacket for a little bit, and I got rid of. I hated that jacket. I never wore that. It was bulky. Exactly what you're saying. 3/4 was different because you were able. First of all, it had the slot to like put under your gun too. Like, so your gun was always exposed and out, and then everything else you could get to it super easy. It wasn't bulky and annoying like that jacket. But I agree. I think the second jacket you showed, that's what you want to. You want a tight fitting like a jacket like that. Someone mentioned the commando sweater. I love the commando sweater. I thought that was my favorite thing to wear in the winter. Honestly, I would wear the commando sweater with the tie and the thing, and it. My entire belt was exposed and I had free movement. You know, yeah, my chest, my vest was under. And I know guys don't like that, but tactically it was sound and it just was. I was just ready for my tour. I processed a lot of arrests like that too. You know, it is what it is. I was comfortable and I felt free, as opposed to when I put that stupid thing on. Donahue says Macari definitely wore the commando sweater at his home on his audio as he monitors PD radio. I didn't. I didn't wear it at home, but I loved it. I did. I thought it was great. I felt like the police in that. You know.
Yeah. True.
You know.
Yeah. Just a quick pet peeve, a quick tangent, because I keep seeing a lot of rookies walking around with that academy vest, that academy jacket with pockets like bulging of stuff. I'm like, dude, what do you know? If you got to get into like a tussle with a perp, you don't want all this crap. If you got to like move quickly or react quickly or run, you don't want all that crap. You got to be kind of as svelte or as you know, as aerodynamic even as possible, you know?
But, you know, I think that's a big problem too, though. Like you get out of the academy and no one kind of tells you that, right? Like what you should really carry. I remember being a rookie on a foot post and I had like 61s and DIRs and like everything in my pocket. And I remember one guy was like, what are you out of your mind? Like, how are you carrying all this shit? And I was like, yeah. I was like, how am I carrying? He's like, just call a car over if you need paperwork. That's it. Carry your summonses and that's it. You know, at the time we only had the one summons, so it was good. You know, we didn't have all different, you know. You had the B was the C, you know, it was that time, and then plus Parkers you had to take, so it was a little different. But he's like, other than that, what could you do? You can't keep all the stuff on you. It's just not possible, you know. And that's another problem is like, and that is what, like, you know, this whole little new thing of the ununiformity. Right? The ununiformity of the NYPD is because there's so many different styles that you could wear at different times. I think it was a lot easier when we were cops because it was like you couldn't do this. Like you couldn't wear this at this time. I remember even the stupid rule with the short sleeves. You know, like you couldn't wear short sleeves until June 1st. It didn't matter how hot it was. Now I would have a platoon commander that would say, all right, well, it dipped below the certain temperature, it dipped above the certain temperature. So they would say, okay, you guys could all wear it. You guys could all wear short sleeves, but you all have to wear short sleeves. If not, you all have to wear long sleeves. And at the time, you had to wear the tie, you know, and that was before you didn't have to deal with the tie. And, you know, it was just a lot easier. It really was. It made it a lot easier. It made it a lot easier for the newer guys to understand. I think as you develop time on patrol and time in policing, you feel confident and prepared to go out. But a lot of what the new guys are doing is just they're going out with a lot more equipment than they need or they're ever going to use, and it's just because they don't have that confidence yet, you know. And a part of that is because it hasn't been trained into you, you know. It's not, so they'll get away with that in time. But listen to this press conference. This is coming from NYPD. This is that East Harlem shooting that we were talking about, the Fresh Market. And again, this shooting is exactly what the Department of Community Safety is being invented for, right? Was put $200 million. Right now, they only have 2 employees. So let's take a listen.
All right, good morning. My name is Inspector Andrew Nativ. I'm the Executive Officer of Patrol Borough of Manhattan North. I'm joined this morning with Deputy Chief Anthony Gassis, the citywide duty chief. Also with me is Deputy Chief Brian Gill from Manhattan North Detectives. Also Deputy Inspector Eric Carrasquillo, the commanding officer of the 2-5 precinct, and Deputy Inspector Derek Bentley from the Force Investigation Division. I'm here to provide an update regarding an officer-involved shooting that occurred earlier this morning in the confines of the 2-5 precinct. Once again, we are reminded of the dangers that our officers confront every time they put on their uniform, and this morning was no different. The information I'm about to provide is preliminary and subject to change. At approximately 1:15 a.m., a male subject was inside of a grocery store on 3rd Avenue between 120 Street and 121, where he got into a verbal dispute with another person inside the store. Following the dispute, the male suddenly became irate and disorderly and had to be physically removed from the store by multiple employees. A short time later, the subject returned to the store. When he returned, he had a large kitchen knife in his hand and was banging on the exterior glass of the window with the knife. At approximately 1:36 a.m., employees of the grocery store called 911 and reported that there was a man outside the store with a knife who was banging on the window with the knife. Store employees said they locked the door to the store so that the male could not re-enter. Officers from the 2-5 precinct arrived about 2 minutes later, and the moment they got out of the police vehicle, they were immediately confronted by the subject who had a knife in his hand that was extended out towards the officers. The officers gave multiple verbal commands to drop the knife and attempted to create physical distance between himself and the subject. But the subject quickly advanced towards the officers with the knife extended out. The subject failed to comply with these verbal commands and got within close proximity of the officers, with the knife extended out when one of the officers discharged the firearm. Officers immediately requested EMS and rendered aid to the male.
So what do you get now if Department of Community Safety responds, right? They show up there. The guy was banging on the window with a knife. Cops show up there. And what does he do? He turns towards them. Are we to believe that that response would be different if the Department of Community Safety responds there? Because that's what we're being told, that somehow that alleviates violence from being deployed. Somehow, if the cops don't show up, the guy's trying to threaten innocent people in a store. So, but if the cops show up, it's expected that he charges them with a knife, but it's not if the Department of Community Safety shows up. So I don't understand. Of course, you say yes, Juju, because you're a moron. You know, how's a medical division? Good. All right, go. in real harm's way, there, bro. You're in real harm's way. You're a real hero. So, but that's what we're being. That's exactly what we're being told, though. That's what we're being told, is that like that somehow that scenario would be different if the Department of Community Safety showed up. I mean, to me right here, like the fact that Zohran Mondani can't take this scenario, or anyone else, Jamani Williams, Tiffany Caban, all the supporters of removing Eric Adams, because he wanted to do this too. Let's not forget that was actually his original idea. All of these people that want this, like, explain how that scenario changes without the police there. Because to me, all I hear is a stabbed dead social worker, which actually just happened, I believe, in Chicago recently. I'm not exactly sure where, but I'm pretty sure it was Chicago, where they're deploying this quasi Department of Community Safety, and they sent them to an emotionally disturbed job, and the psychiatrist got stabbed.
You know, we talked about it a couple episodes ago. I'm actually trying to find it again, but there was a report about the Be Heard program and about the clinicals, about the responses in that program. about they said I think it was around 86% of the calls the cops have to respond anyway, you know, because the 911 operators, they err on the side of caution, and if they can't determine whether there is a weapon, if there is a weapon, or they can't determine that there isn't a weapon involved, they send 911 there anyway. So again, I think that this is a flawed idea, and they have no answers for it right now. And as we see with the small programs that they do have right now, which like Be Heard and the I've talked about before, the co-response unit, you know, when I used to call them, they used to ask me if I'm going to be on scene there, and they used to tell me that they're not coming out unless I'm going to be there too, which again is like, what's the point then? You know, I thought the whole point was for you to, you know, respond so that an officer doesn't have to be there, you know. So we're seeing that it doesn't work. And I believe Chief Lukash also spoke about this a while ago, that there was a pilot program in Staten Island, and that failed as well. So what are we doing here? They keep trying to put a square peg in a round hole, even though it clearly doesn't work, you know. And like we said, they have no solutions for these social problems that they have in New York City, because the real answers would be to fix them. But fixing them requires, number one, resources, and number two, it means you know, no crumbs, you know, no crumbs for these community organizations, no crumbs for these NGOs. And in a way, it means destroying the progressive industrial complex themselves, you know, and they're not going to do it. They're unwilling to do it. So the only thing left for them is to lie to you about what's actually happening. And even in the case of Zohan's own supporters, think of it. He's actually lying to his own supporters, because here he is pushing something. He's telling them he's pushing it when clearly he's kind of half-assing it, because the Office of Community Safety only has 2 people right now, right? But he's telling them he's telling them that, you know, he's fulfilling his campaign promises, but we know he's not. So the only thing left for these big blue cities is for them to lie to you about what's actually happening, and for them to obfuscate certainly the crime, and you know, their plans for solving crime and emotionally disturbed persons, you know.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's what it is, dude. It doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. And, you know, and the further, like the more that I look at the legislation and stuff that was put in place against the NYPD to restrict the NYPD, it appears that it was intentional. It was intentional, knowing that situations would look worse in order to push this civilian model of policing further. I think. Oh, so I said earlier that a social worker was stabbed at one of these. It was Massachusetts. Social worker responds to a very similar call than what we just put out. Male with having an emotionally disturbed incident. Is emotionally violent. Access to a knife. Social worker gets there, spends 45 minutes talking to the guy, and guess what? Ultimately winds up getting stabbed anyway. So, you know, this video came out recently again online. I believe it's an old video. I don't know why it resurfaced, but it has. And so what you'll see is, I just want to make sure this is up on the screen. Yeah, it is. Okay. So what you're going to see is, you're going to see cops rushing into an 85, right? 1085 inside of a restaurant. And cops or I'm not sure the exact scenario, but the cops are struggling to handcuff these people. So a lot of people have commented, why does it take 10 cops to handcuff somebody? And, you know, the thing is, it used to not take this amount of police here. It used to only take 2 cops, maybe 3, maybe 4 at most. But now you just see the pile on, and every time you watch these videos, Cops just look like they're falling over each other. Their equipment's falling off their belt. You know, their hats are everywhere, and they don't know how to handle these situations any longer. That's what it appears. But what nobody understands is, like, this is a trained instance. This is exactly what the diaphragm law did. But every cop knows the diaphragm law. They know what it is. They know what to expect. And what it is that not only could you not deploy a chokehold in this certain scenario, here's a different angle of it. Not only could you not deploy a chokehold in this scenario, but you also can't put pressure to a person's diaphragm, meaning you can't put pressure to their back or neck and handcuff them, which is completely impossible standard to hold anyone to. You have to put pressure to someone's diaphragm in order to handcuff someone who does not want to be handcuffed. Even in this scenario right here, there is pressure being put on this person's diaphragm, right? And all we're waiting for is just the politically correct moment for some district attorney to say, I'm going to indict a cop for this, and they have the legislation on the book. So what these cops are doing is attempting to not put any pressure on the individual's diaphragm, and that's what you witness nearly every single arrest at this point, but they always wind up doing it anyway. They always wind up doing it anyway, and it's something that's not addressed. Now, although no one's been indicted for this, it's only a matter of time when that will happen. This scenario is not a scenario that you would see often. Look how many cops are actually here. This is the entire precinct that day, 100%. So how many other 911 calls are being held? How many people are waiting for a police response right now? A lot. Why? Because it's a direct result of the diaphragm law. So, you know, are there other things at play here? I'm sure there's some other things we could talk about, but nothing more so than that diaphragm law. That is a direct result. When you see cops fumbling around with people and they're falling over themselves and they can't get the guy cuffed, it's because there is zero training to do this. They had Renzo Gracie come to the police academy, show the safe wrap system for the NYPD, and I'm sure the NYPD spent a lot of money for that. But all of the training since Gardner, the safe wrap, it all starts in the same scenario. The person is on their back with their hands behind their back. That there is a million things that need to happen before you get a perpetrator in that scenario. where they're laying on their stomach with their back facing you, with their hands behind your back. So, I mean, to me, this just shows, it just highlights every arrest situation where a perpetrator resists, just highlights how incompetent that legislation was. And yet there is nothing being done to get rid of that legislation and to give NYPD cops proper training. Why did it take 2 cops to handcuff someone just a few years ago, and now it takes 20? I mean, what happened? It was the diaphragm law.
Yeah, it's absolutely the diaphragm law. And watch the video too. You can see the guys are like, at a certain point, they're kind of like looking around because to me, it seems like they don't know what to do. You know, it looks like they're waiting around for maybe a boss or somebody to show up, and you know, maybe I assumed at that point that the perp, had his hands, underneath him, and they just didn't know how to go about getting it, getting him in cuffs, without again violating the diaphragm law. And which is why, again, that diaphragm law, it should be like top priority for the job right now to reform it, right? And yet we're hearing silence from the unions, from Tish, and everybody at 1PP. I mean, I think they need to grow a pair of balls now and do something before some cop or some perp gets hurt, because what's happening in that pylon is that nobody fully knows what's going on. You might have his lower, his legs, and you have another cop right in front of you, so you can't see what a perp's hands are even. And think of it, it's only a matter of time before everyone is in that pylon, and the perp may still have a firearm that he's reaching for underneath him in his waistband. And I just don't understand why this isn't a priority right now. Can't you? I mean, you see all these videos we look at and how it all looks ugly. It looks absolutely ugly, you know? And it's a gang tackle that seems to me that it takes even longer now as opposed to when you could have one guy put pressure on their upper body. And we're not talking center torso here, right? We're talking to his upper body, his shoulders, and then quickly put him in handcuffs. You're not seeing that. Now you're seeing guys, a gang tackle and cops struggling to put him in handcuffs, and it looks ugly. And it needs to be corrected ASAP before somebody gets hurt. Now, to quickly go back to what John mentioned before about Boston, this is I put a link in the chat for you guys to see yourself, right? This happened in Boston just a couple yesterday, maybe, right? 24 hours, yeah, yesterday, right? Yesterday or Saturday, late Saturday. And what happened is the cops eventually had to shoot the EDP anyway, right? So again, this whole idea of a Department of Community Safety filled with civilians is just a disaster waiting to happen. And you go back to that video of the cops struggling to put the perp in handcuffs, right? Can you imagine now? You know, civilians respond to an EDP, the EDP goes after them, and somehow they manage to, you know, they manage to hold them off. You think the untrained civilians are going to be able to subdue an EDP when you have like 6 cops right now struggling to put a perp in handcuffs because they can't put pressure on his upper torso? It's just stupid. Yeah.
You know, what was this idiot's name? Juju. He says, we're looking for evidence to back up your agenda is peak intellectual dishonesty. So here's the thing, Juju. We're not actually looking for evidence. It's just getting smacked in the face with evidence. Because every time we turn on the internet, you guys are getting made fun of, right? And we have to explain exactly why that situation is. You know, why do the cops look like that? Why does it appear that they're inept? Why does it appear that they're untrained? Why can't they restrain people? Why, for years, could 2 cops arrest somebody and now they can? When you watch the Alex Preddy shooting that happened at ICE, the exact reason that Alex Preddy was shot was this exact reason. Because there were way too many cops in there. There was a pile on. Nobody knew what was happening. And that's what happens when you have way too many police officers in there. Like when we were cops, this didn't happen, dude. If I was the sergeant there, I wouldn't have 10 guys, 2 on each limb. Like that, it's too confusing. It needs to be a controlled scenario, right? Like, and exactly what Marlon said, that dude could have had a gun still in his waistband and no one there even knows it because you don't know who did what or who has what. When you have 2 guys or 3 guys or 4 guys, there's communication. Once it goes past that, it's completely broken down. Communication has broken down and you're not actually even helping anymore. You can't have 10 guys arrest somebody. It does more harm than good. It creates more confusion than good. So, I mean, you would know that if you ever made an arrest and you weren't just busy like copyright and making books that made absolutely no sense on topics you knew nothing about personally, you know, or acting or singing or dancing. You would understand that if you ever actually even fought with someone to put their handcuffs in them, or you actually ever supervised someone while they were fighting with people to get handcuffs on them. So that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about why that is. So we weren't scouring the internet trying to find evidence. And even if we did, at least we have evidence, unlike where city council just passed a law when disregarded what the police unions, what police experts, what use of force experts, what martial artists, what UFC fighters, what jiu-jitsu experts all had to say about it. They they took all the evidence and said, we don't need to look at that. Nobody cares what the police have to say. You know, and we brought you that show with Bob Holden a couple of weeks ago where he was on here and he said exactly that. They just didn't care what the police had to say. They did not need the police's opinion and they don't care. This is where they're going to go. And it's the same thing with this Department of Community Safety. We're presenting all of the evidence as to why this will fail and asking the questions that what New York City taxpayers deserve and what taxpayers across this country deserve, where all these programs are happening. Like, what is it what I'm paying for when I can call 911? What type of response should I expect? And instead of even answering the questions, we just get hit with ad hominem attacks, because nobody can answer the question. What is their response time going to be? What should citizens expect when you call 911 because there is an emotionally disturbed individual on your block with a knife? What is the response time you should expect? Who should you expect to come there? When your family member is mentally ill and violent, large man, individual who could cause a lot of damage to you, when you call 911, what type of response should you expect? How long is it going to take for them to get there? Is it going to take days? Is it going to take minutes? Is it going to take hours? Is it going to take weeks? This is not like a hard thing. This is, again, these are our elected representatives. They're not our masters. They're not our overseers. They are our representatives. We pay taxes for these services. We have the right to complain and adjust them when they don't make sense. But here you go. We don't even have any transparency around them. We're providing you the transparency of what happened with the diaphragm law. And again, just met with bullshit stuff that no one could answer. I had someone online. I broke it down online. The post went pretty far. I did it on my X account. And someone was on there. Well, I wish that a journalist or a credentialed person, could give a breakdown of this, if this is in fact accurate. And I'm like, so 18 years of policing, 42 years watching the politics of New York City, breaking down exactly what's happening and the law and the mind frame isn't good for you. You'd rather a journalist who's never been in this situation, or a politician who's never been in this situation, who's disregarding the law, break it down for you? Like, again, I'm willing to debate anyone, including you, Juju. Not a lot of people are willing to debate me. It's weird. It's a weird thing, because the truth is the truth, my friend.
Yeah, Juju. If you arrest people other than grandmas and working people, right? If you arrest actual perps, right? You need to think about this, okay? Because in a pylon, that perp is gonna have a firearm. It could possibly have a firearm in his waistband, okay? And nobody knows where his hands are, because again, you have 10 cops on each other, blocking each other's views, and nobody knows what's actually going on, okay? And nobody knows who's going after his hands right now. Who's looking at his hands? I'm telling you, somebody's gonna get shot, or you may even have a some sort of a I don't know, a reflexive shooting or something there, okay? Because nobody, again, knows what's going on, and in that pylon, we don't know who's got his hands, who's watching his hands, and you might have somebody say, oh, thinking that maybe he's reaching for a gun when he's not, and that person's gonna scream gun, and next thing you know, everyone's shooting at him. Okay, so that is a bad look, and that's a disaster waiting to happen. And if 1PP, y'all better get a hand on this before something happens. And not only do you have the cop's life is gonna be is gonna be changed after that, but we have the potential for him to get injured or killed, and the perp to get injured and killed. And we all know in this city, once that happens, how it's not just a problem for those involved, but it's going to be a problem for everyone when you got these idiots like Hawk Newsom ready to riot over it without hearing the understanding the full circumstances. So you need to get ahead of this before something bad happens. And remember, a lot of things we talk about on this show, if you look months down the road, a year down the road, it ends up happening. Okay, so I think you really need to get a hand on this, and I think the unions really need to push, push the politicians to reform the law. Okay, we know that it's not. I don't think it's entirely going to go away, but we need them to understand that you could put pressure on their upper body, without crushing their lungs or putting pressure on their center torso. so they can't breathe. Okay.
So who is this? This is PT335I. He says that I don't believe that it's the diaphragm law. I think it's the cops, the quality of the cops. They're out of shape. They're weak. They're struggling to control real perps who train to get away from cops. So look, I'll agree with you that the quality of hires is down. I mean, we've shown you that time and time again. I'll show you the article that just came up about the women in the range where, you got the one girl who, look, I heard is a decent shot, by the way, but like, she's got nails out to here and she's shooting an AR-15. I mean, like, I get what you're saying about, like their standards are lowered, right? There's no uniformity, right? You're not allowed to have nails like this in policing, but yet we do. And from an instructor who's supposed to be the top level, right? It's supposed to be what show you how you're supposed to be out there in the field. So I'll agree with you that the quality of cops is down and that the level of training is down. But the diaphragm law, what the diaphragm law does is it makes it a misdemeanor for you to put pressure on somebody's diaphragm, meaning that every move that you could do in jiu-jitsu, any move that you could do in wrestling is a misdemeanor. It like there's nothing worse than that law. Tell me how you arrest someone that doesn't want to be arrested and you can't put pressure on their diaphragm under threat of you being charged criminally. You think that's not in the back of these cops' minds? That's certainly in the back of these cops' minds. That, along with what happened to Derek Chauvin during the Floyd, this is in the back of every cop's mind, and you can't discount it at all. And the thing is, like, control moves that we were trained in the police academy prior to this new way of policing, prior to the Eric Garner situation, they were actually effective. So even if you weren't as strong or you were in less shape or you were out of shape, putting pressure on someone's diaphragm as leverage gave you the ability to bring their extremities, extend their extremities, their arms backwards, so that you were able to get them handcuffed quickly and safely. The diaphragm law has systemically changed all of that. I'm not disagreeing with you that the quality of cops are down at all. I totally agree with you, but I don't think that is exactly what you're witnessing here. You're witnessing cops who are afraid to put pressure on someone's diaphragm. Ultimately, they always wind up doing it anyway because they start to tire out, realizing 10 of them have no control on one individual. And I think I don't think it could be dismissed here. Like it really is a significant problem. We said it was a significant problem. Eric Dims in the chat, he brought it up. When it first came out, there was a lot of movement in the police department about it. The unions, the cops, the bosses, they were all like, this is ridiculous. Monahan shut it all down when he said, we can't be afraid. We can't be afraid. And it's like, it has nothing to do with being afraid, but it has everything to do with being stupid. And if we're going to just discount the fact that you can't put pressure on someone's diaphragm, and if you do, you potentially go to jail. I mean, we're being stupid. We're not being afraid. We're being real stupid.
I see a comment in there about Alex Petty. This was the civilian that was shot by ICE in Minneapolis. And it's interesting you bring that up because I actually think, I think we touched on it a bit, but I actually think that part of the problem with what happened to him was that exact issue, that in that pylon, nobody, things get confused, and no, it's hard to figure out who has what in the pylon and what exactly the purpose doing. And I do think it plays a role in what happened to him. Now, I haven't seen any updated videos about, angles of, other angles besides this one. But when I initially saw this, that's what I thought. And that's why I keep talking about it. And I've been talking about it more so since this incident about the diaphragm law and how that pylon is going to, an incident's going to go sideways because of that pylon. And I just want to push back also against that comment because, okay, it's not just training, okay? Because let's go back to the video of the takedown by Officer Pulgarin, who, by the way, is still a cop and hasn't been promoted yet, even though we've managed to give out special assignment pay to a sergeant, the sergeant that was involved in this, Sergeant Navarro, who really didn't do anything here. But whatever. Right, if you go back to this video, you can see that Grant is on top of him after, and he himself is struggling to put the perp in handcuffs because, again, you can't put force on their upper body, okay? And that is a problem even for a capable cop like he is. And if you look at it, the amount of arrests that he is 100% capable, okay? So it's not just about training. It's about the diaphragm law itself. It's a major problem for cops, okay? And it's a you know, some incident again is going to go sideways because you know, it now takes again like a whole squad of cops to put a perp in handcuffs. And when you have everybody on that pylon, nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows where the perp's hands are. Nobody knows. Nobody, in fact, nobody. I doubt people even know what's happening on his upper body. You know, because again, you have a cop in front of you, and you have a small portion of the perp's body. And again, watch the video that we just played. You see, at a certain point, all the cops are just sitting there on him, and the cops closest to us are looking around as though they don't know what to do. And they don't know what to do because the purpose got them in such a situation where they feel that if they take it any further, they're going to violate the diaphragm law and they're going to get fired. These cops look like young guys. Okay. So some of them are probably still on probation. Okay. So they don't know what to do. And it looks like they're waiting around for the boss to come and take charge. And that is a major problem, especially if he does have an additional weapon on him.
Yeah, and the boss was there, but he was in the background, not really right there. I used to get in there constantly with my knee and like separate people and be like, all right, you get his arm, you get like whatever. I don't even want to comment on it, but like it's 100% that, and it's also the NYPD training also because like you said, they're younger guys. When's your training gonna be at its peak? Right? Like when you're younger, right? Because you're coming fresh off of that academy experience. And this is what they're being trained. They're being trained to be intimidated. KB in New York City asked $8 for the number of collars Juju has made in his career. Those who can do, those who can't teach. So Juju has 70 arrests, 10 of those are violations, 52 of those are misdemeanors, 8 of those are felonies. I don't even know what a violation arrest is, but whatever, whatever. So 70 arrests. Not horrible, I guarantee they were all like radio runs though. I'm sure he was not involved in proactive pickup arrest. Obviously you could hear from his banter on here consistently. So not a terrible number because he was probably a 5-year sergeant, I would assume. I didn't go through it, but I believe he was. So not a terrible number. Speaking of that, by the way, let me bring this up right now. If you're a sergeant right now and you want to start studying for the lieutenant's course, the key will allow you to do that, actually. So let me find this real quick. So the key's offering, I believe it's... Hold on, let me bring this up.
Yeah. Yeah, guys, we keep talking about it for a reason, okay?
No, this is a different thing. This is the sergeant and lieutenant's course for a combo sale. $9.99. $9.99. So if you go to the key, like you're a sergeant right now, or you're on the sergeant's list, and you're going to study for the lieutenant's exam. If you want to get ahead of the curve and take the sergeant's exam, you could do that. Take the sergeant's class. You'll be able to take the sergeant's class in February. When the sergeant's class is over, they're going to begin the lieutenant's class. If you sign up now for $9.99, you get both the classes. So, this is for guys who are already basically on the list, and want to be able to, or already a sergeant want to start studying, $999, you're going to get the bundle. So you'll be able to take the key sergeant's course and then the lieutenant's course. So it's a combined bundle. I think it's a good deal. And just think, you only need 1 day in rank to take the test. Right? So you only need 1 day in rank to take the test. So if you're on the list right now, it's not a bad idea. You know, not a bad idea to do. If you're just dedicated and you want to be a lieutenant and you want to be like Juju, just sit around and watch the podcast all day while you're at work. I mean, $999, you get the keys course. So definitely take advantage of it. That's a combo deal. Our code is no longer active. To find us Unfiltered, $699. So, and again, that was just a one course for $849 for the sergeant's course. You would have got $150 off if you took advantage of our code. If you didn't, you're going to be paying $849 in the future. If you want both of the courses, $999. So,
yeah, it's a no-brainer, guys. Especially if you're a sergeant, you better take that test. Even if you want to retire, right? Take the test. Okay, pass the test, and then you retire as a lieutenant. Okay, if you're a sergeant, again, this is a no-brainer, because you need to take the test because you have guys like Juju who's gonna be your boss. Okay, and Juju in medical division now is probably studying. Okay, he's probably studying the captain's test. So one day, right? Juju is gonna be Chief Juju, right? Do you really want Chief Juju telling you what you can't do? Okay, do you really want Chief Juju to be showing up at your incident, or your shooting? Okay, no, you don't. Okay, so take the test and get up the ranks. Okay, so there'll be less morons in charge of you. Okay, take the test and get up there in rank so we can clear the department of all these idiots that are in 1PP. Okay, you know they're idiots. Okay, you all know it. So take those tests and let's push them out the door. Okay.
totally agree. So, Sal's got a show coming out today, and I got to talk on it. Like, I was going to refrain from saying anything. I stopped myself from tweeting about it, but the sensationalism is just next level, dude. It really is. It's so disingenuous. I am so happy that he's no longer part of this network. I mean, because he 100% wouldn't be any part of this network any longer anyway, with all of the shit that he's done recently and put out recently. It's honestly disgusting to me. So they've came in contact with this photo that was going around the group chat from Manhattan North narcotics. Like, look, is it inappropriate? Absolutely. Is it offensive? Absolutely. Do you feel like this is a huge scandal that you have cops saying inappropriate things, potentially racist or anti-Semitic things in a group chat? I'm like, are you serious? Do you want me to show you my phone right now? Do you know what my phone looked like my entire career? Like, this is breaking news. This is an Sal Greco exclusive. It's absolutely disturbing to me. You got him like all over it saying this is horrible. This is why the community hates the police. And it's like, Sal, you weren't a cop, dude. You didn't know any of this stuff happened in the New York City Police Department. It's weird. You didn't know that guys are idiots. Like, it's dumb. I'm not excusing it. Like, it's definitely discipline needs to be issued here, but it's because you can't be human anymore on the job. You can't even joke. Because what you guys don't understand is that half the people that you're joking with, they might be your friend now, but at some point they might not be your friend, and then they're going to sue you. Or you're going to be a boss, and then at some point they're going to sue you. Or you're going to get into a fight with them, and at some point they're going to sue you. And so you can't joke around in these group chats anymore, especially if you're a boss, anything like that. It 100% is a joke. But this is what Eric Sanders putting out. He's saying NYPD scandals. Lexow Committee, 1894. That's what I've been reading about, right? The Curran Committee, 1912. The Seabury, 1932. Harry Gross, 1950. The Knapp, 1970. Marlon, 1994. And now the Manhattan North narcotics. It's weird that he skips over all of the scandals under the Adams regime. He skips over the brothel that was being run in New York City Police Department under Jeffrey Madry's reign. He skips over all of that. And we have some guys in Manhattan North narcotics on a group text, and one was wearing a hood. It was a dumb joke. It's stupid. This is not corruption. This is just stupidity. It's absolute stupidity. It's a poor taste in joke. And this is why you guys don't take pictures and put them out in group chats, but you'll never learn. Because now you got this, right? And so apparently, like, this person's upset about it. Whoever was in this group chat, they're upset about it. I think there's going to be an ensuing lawsuit, but I don't think this person's going to be using Eric Sanders either. And so then it's like, that's kind of weird. So you're not even using this person, and they're talking about your scandal that's coming out. This is sensationalism at its finest. Here's another thing. White supremacist infiltration is not a theory. The NYPD was on notice. So now all of a sudden, the NYPD is infiltrated with white supremacists. Like, I'm sorry, dude. I didn't even look up like what the racial demographics of Manhattan North narcotics is, because I don't even need to bother. I don't care. To even suggest that there was that there's an infiltration of white supremacists in the NYPD is such a dishonest conversation. It's not even funny. This is sensationalism at its finest. Completely disgusted by it all. You know, I just, everything's a rush to clout chase, to get out onto Twitter. Look what I found. Now he's found white supremacy in the NYPD. Get out of here. Serious, absolute joke, dude. You guys in Manhattan North narcotics, you're retarded. You're morons. Dumb shit. This is why you don't do that. You can't joke anymore in the NYPD. It's not funny. And here you go. This is why. Now all of a sudden, you're white supremacists. You have two former cops running out all over social media, trying to hang you guys from the nearest rafters and destroy your careers.
Yeah. Bro, the stuff coming from Sanders and them is like, is wild, you know? And I don't know what Sal is doing now with that show. And Jack, you need to put your foot down if you're your producer, and that, because that is 100% sensational. You know, I said it online that you know, the problem with Sanders is everything is racism with him, right? Everything is racism. Even the dumb behavior it's some systematic racism, and it's some conspiracy, because the job is you know, in his view, the job is like we're in like the 1950s or 30s or something, you know?
No, we're way before that, bro. We didn't even fight the Civil War yet.
Yeah. I mean, look at the demographic. Look at the demographics of the job right now, right? Look at the demographics, right? Where are we at? Right? The job is majority Hispanic right now, okay? And yet, if you talk to people like Sanders, right? And all the crap that's him and Sal are putting out, you would think the job is like it's like majority white, and it's oppressive to minorities. I mean, we gotta stop with that, you know. It's silly. And now the problem is, now the media might run with this, and you know, all the wacko leftists like Hawk Newsom, right, are ready to use this, right, and you know, claim that the NYPD is racist, you know. And it's just, I don't know what to say about this. It's just so ridiculous, you know. It's completely out of line too. And the problem, again, I told Sal this before he left. The problem with his show now is, I don't know where his show begins and where Eric Sanders' propaganda and where Eric Sanders and the Guardian's agenda ends. And that's a problem, okay? It's a problem, because I see no criticism when it's a certain chief connected to the Guardians, and I see plenty of criticism when it's a white chief, okay? And we don't do that here. We criticize everybody here, okay? And if we're going to cherry pick who we're going to criticize and what we're going to talk about, then the show is clearly, you know, it's giving off the vibes that I'm looking at Guardians Power Hour rather than the Sal Greco show. And I don't know if Eric Sanders had kind of is holding Sal's case a hostage here, okay? Because he literally has Sal's life in his hands, okay? Right? But that show and what they're doing, this stuff is not right. And I heard, a couple episodes back, he talked about also Carlos Fabera, okay? I think Inspector Fabera, right? And I kept watching the episodes, waiting. I'm like, does he have did Inspector Fabera do something wrong? And I'm like, the episode finished, and I'm like, what? You just drop innuendo and you don't have anything else on it, and that's not right. It's not right. Okay, if you have news, you report the news, but you can't be the news. And what I'm seeing here is attempts to be the news and to create the news, and that's not right. Okay. And again, you have to look at the agenda of the Guardians, okay? If the Guardians has a member who feel they've been slighted or feel that they've been a victim of perceived racism, and we talk about how this victimhood is part of the Democrat agenda and how the Guardians is an arm of the Democrat Party. They are. You go look at the history, okay? So now every member of the Guardians who feels slighted is now going to leak information and claim racism now. Is that what it's going to be about now? Okay. So if somebody felt slighted by Inspector Fabera, are they going to claim racism? Or are they going to leak everything about him now? And it's just wrong. And we have to make a separation between the news and between reporting the news and creating the news. Okay. It's not right. Okay.
I mean, dude, this is what it's turned into. The Guardians powwow. This is what it's turned into. It's a joke. There's clearly a narrative being pushed, and that's what it is. That's exactly what it is. So, like to sit there and claim white supremacy or racism because a racist statement's been made, then the same brush that you're painting with, I could paint all of you with as well. Oh, you said a racist statement one? You said you're all black supremacists and you're all racist. It's like, come on. Is this a joke? Like it's a total joke. What does Sal put out? Like even just now, what is he putting out now? Breaking news. Let's say I get it on my phone. Sources say the police academy accidental discharge was badly mishandled from the start. I'm just it's clout chasing to the next level, dude. That's my whole point. And it's for absolutely no reason, and no one's enjoying it. That's why it shows in the numbers, and it's pathetic to watch at this point. It literally is, and it doesn't even help anyone and anything. It's just next level shit, dude. It honestly is. I'm disgusted by it, and I don't even care about what happened with us. I don't even care about that. I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about like it's just a stain on this network that he was ever even on it at this point because of what's happening. It's a stain that and it's really lost the way. And again, I'll say it because I know you like it, Sal. You lost the plot, dude. You lost the plot, bro. I'm sorry. Like you I don't know where you took your show. And if you guys remember, his show absolutely sucked in the beginning. It was horrible, right? He was reading for hours. Myself and Marlon really like produced the whole show. He said, stop reading, do this, do that. And then his show got really good, right? And now he just tanked it. That's why he gets no views. He gets no numbers. His channel's not growing at all. Yeah, all right, Juju, I'm jealous. Okay, I don't know what I'm jealous of. I don't know what I'm jealous of. What I want to tank to find us Unfiltered, get zero followers, have our numbers go down. Like what? Like what am I jealous of? Whatever. I like just enough on it, but it's ridiculous. Like there's certain things they will not comment on, and then there's other things that they go overboard on and they completely sensationalize. And and just for Eric Sanders too, dude, get off of social media, bro. Go back to being an attorney. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Get off of social, because you're doing your clients a disservice, dude. You also lost the plot, my friend. I don't know what you guys are doing. You're clout chasing. If you guys are going to be like celebrity grifters or whatever, then good luck to you. But you're certainly not going to be trustworthy people. You're certainly not going to be anybody that's going to help institutional policing or anything else in this country, or victims or anybody else, because you're clearly all out for yourselves.
Yeah. Look, it's the internet, and you could do whatever you want. It's your show, Sal. But that's not a good look, man. You know, and it's not a good look that me as a viewer, and I used to watch the show every day, every time it was on too, right?
too.
If I can determine where the Guardians Association ends and their agenda and Sanders' agenda, and where the news on the Sal Greco show begins, then that's a problem. Okay, it's really a problem. It's a problem if I look at that post and I can't determine what's accurate here. Okay, and again, I agree with John that I think it's just stupidness that the narcotics guys were doing. That again, it's dumb, and it's they're not thinking, because what now they're gonna get, I'm sure, investigations or IB or whoever's breathing down their neck. Okay, right? It's dumb, but is it systematic racism? Is it a racist conspiracy? No, that's stupid. Okay, come on, where this ain't the Civil War here. Okay, now again, we want the best for Sal. Okay, and the thing is, what he's doing is not going to help him. Okay, being sensational about what's happening in the NYPD, being the NYPD's TMZ, is not going to help him. Okay, and it doesn't help anybody in this space. Okay, and the fact that he's still associated with the Finest, because a lot of people have seen him in the Finest, and when they think of Sal, they think of the Finest too. Okay, it is what it is at this point. Okay, it's not a good look to keep sensationalizing this stuff, and it doesn't help cops in the job, and nor does it help the job itself, which is the entire point of what we do. Okay, because we want a better NYPD, and where the things we talk about here is the things we saw in our careers, and there was no avenue to voice them and to voice the problems, and now we do have an avenue. So it behooves us not to turn that into sensationalism and destroy it. Okay, right? It behooves us to protect it. Okay, and not turn it into some sort of National Enquirer or TMZ. Okay, that's all we're saying here.
100%, 100%. And so, yeah, look, there's no war. Like, I could care less. Like, it's like I said, I don't consider him a friend. I'll tell you right now, I'll never want to work with him ever again. That's for damn sure. I don't care. Even if we reconciled, I don't trust him at this point. And so, like, I don't want him anywhere around the network. And we all feel that way, can't be trusted, obviously. And, dude, the debate, the offer to debate was there. Nobody ever took it up, right? It originally started with Eric Sanders. He couldn't debate his points. A trial attorney can't debate his points. I mean, with some racist cops, So I mean, right off the bat is that. So, it's not a war. It's just is what it is. It just does a lot of damage to cops that are out here in the media now that are speaking factual, that care about institutional policing, and you're sensationalizing a group chat where some dude posted some dumb shit that could be taken as racist or anti-Semitic or whatever else, and then you run and sensationalize it and compare it to the Lexow committee or the Marlon commission when the NYPD was systemically corrupt at this time, and then just, by the way, overlook everything that happened in the administration, all of the selling of contracts, the bids, the prostitution, the overtime scandals, the shakedowns, the racketeering scandals. Overlook all of that and go to the 2-5 Manhattan North group text. Are you kidding me? It's like sensationalism as was fine, and painting it to be this white supremacy conspiracy that has been infiltrated the NYPD, and Sal's running with it. Like, It's you know, they should really change the name of the show to the Eric Sanders Show, because that's clearly what it is. So
Yeah, that's exactly the problem. And I'll tell you exactly when it went off the rails. It went off the rails when Sanders went on Corey Pegues' show. No, not Sanders, but Pat Gordon, right? He went on Corey Pegues' show, and then Corey asked him about hiring Eric Sanders. And at that point, I started seeing a change in Sal's show. And what I assume happened is Eric Sanders, started influencing the show even more. Okay. And I think Sanders is working with the Guardians. And I don't know if he's being paid by the Guardians or he's just whatever he's doing. I think he's working for them, and I think there's clearly a push to use Sal's show to shape the Guardians' narrative and their agendas and whatever they want to do, even if it's putting pressure on Tish to promote their members or protect their members. I think that's exactly what the show is being used for now, and it's not good for Sal. And it's not good for the space, and it's not good for the job itself, for the actual cops on the street. So that's it for me for today.
no, I agree. Just last thing, Chief Lukash says, what I don't understand, every cop doesn't need to be fired. Hard to hear from a guy who claims he shouldn't have been fired. I mean, that's the thing. If everybody needs to be fired, then nobody needs to be fired, right? Like, and that's the thing. It's like everything that comes out. Eric says maybe if Eric Sanders doesn't spend so much time on Sal's show, he can actually try to win Sal's case, which is what I've been saying for 2 years. Like, why have they not settled that case? Why is that case? And like we said it here, a lot of it is just scolding on Sanders on like, what are you doing? And it's obvious what he's doing is, so that's it. I'm done with that topic, but I just had to bring that up because I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. Took a lot in me not to say anything online because I'm like, you don't sensationalize. This is sensationalize to the 1,000th degree. Breaking! I have found cops saying dumb shit on a group text. Like, oh, stop the presses here. We found it. We found the white supremacy that everybody's been looking for in New York City for the last 20 years. And but whatever, we're just a bunch of Joe cops. So, and if you guys agree with us, you too are a Joe cop. Last thing, I don't know if this was intentional, not intentional. I don't know what the hell this was, but I could not stop laughing when I see this photo. Taking aim, women of steel excel at NYPD's firing range. Like, the nails are insane. I mean, I was cracking up, like laughing my ass off. And then later on, I'm going through X and I see Marlon posted nearly the same exact thing that I did. I was like, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Now, look, I don't know that I first of all, I hear that she's a good trainer. I do. I hear that she's a pretty good shot. Some people say her groupings aren't where they should be for an expert trainer, but clearly those nails are a bad representation. Should have never made its way to the New York Post. Nope. That photo does not make its way to the New York Post. I'm sorry. And I wonder if the New York Post took that photo on purpose and put that photo out on purpose and use it on purpose as the thing, because I just think it's ridiculous, dude. I think it's ridiculous. It's anything to show the women agenda. Anything to show that women are running policing now. Like, it was ridiculous. Those nails are ridiculous. Like, how are you cleaning guns?
Yep.
How are you cleaning guns? I clean guns. Like, how are you cleaning guns like that? You're an instructor for the NYPD. That is not conformity to uniform standards in the NYPD. You should present the way that everyone needs to be and within department guidelines if you're going to be an instructor for the NYPD. That is clearly not a representation. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I agree. My point when I put this is exactly that. Like, John is saying that she's a great instructor. He's heard that she's a great instructor, but I have a hard time taking her seriously with those nails. I'm sorry. Maybe it's good when the target isn't shooting back at you, when you're at a range and it's it's a controlled environment, but you're also teaching these rookies tactics. Okay, and to the tactical mindset. And if you have 3-inch nails, I don't think you're in a tactical mindset. Okay. Now, I'm sorry, ladies. I know you want to look nice, but you're also a cop. Okay. So when you retire, you can have those nails as long as you feel like it. Okay. But you're a cop and you need to be in the tactical mindset. Okay. Because those nails are not going to help you on the streets. Okay. Those nails are not going to help you when you have to quickly load your firearm. Okay. Or reach whatever tool you need on your gun belt. Okay. So I don't think that I agree. I don't think this is a good look at all. And, I question I have other questions about the CO hair, because I look at her collars and it's not, I'm not impressed, And you know what I think about people who don't have a certain amount of collars, right? Now, you don't need to have you don't need to be like a machine or have like a narcotics level amount of arrests, right? To be a good leader. But when I see the bare minimum as a patrol cop, I have to wonder again, where your head is at. Okay. And when I see this photo, which that shouldn't have happened, they should have told this officer to cut her fingernails, to take off those nails before, certainly before the camera, right? When I see that poor decision, I have to wonder even more so about the leadership there. Okay. And again, what I said was also that it appears to me that this is more that progressive agenda that's been happening the last couple of years with things like the 30 for 30 initiative, right? And yeah, I gotta say it, DEI, that's because that is an agenda, right? I have to think that because again, Inspector Dice has also been in prior news pieces about when she was in Highway, and I think there's another one as well. So she's a media darling, okay? And here we have her in another fluff piece by the Post because now she's in charge of firearms and tactics, okay? So I have to wonder about all of that because this photo should not have happened, okay? And also, I'm not going to comment about the placement of the firearm in here. I have questions about that too, but including about the the backup site over here, right? Yeah, unfortunately, you guys can't see where I have my cursor, and also about the placement of this light. I'm not sure I would put my light there on the rifle, yeah. But again, the biggest issue here is the 3-inch fingernails. Okay, I don't think this is a photo is a good look.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of I'm by no means a firearms expert at all, but there was a lot of guys that had a lot to say about that gun and what was on it and the equipment on it and then the placement of the bullets and the shots, but I do know a lot of people that have been trained by her and they say great things about her. So I'm not saying that, but that was a dumb photo. Last thing real quick, just guy lives in my neighborhood, retired NYPD sergeant. His daughter unfortunately has a rare brain tumor. I'm going to put this up on social media in a little while, but where is it? So they're doing a fundraiser for him. Church group's doing a fundraiser for him. My wife just sent this to me. This guy, I believe his name's Damian Velez. His daughter Mila came down with a rare brain tumor, and they're kind of struggling right now. So if you guys could donate to the family, we appreciate it. Damian actually I don't know Damian from a hole in the wall, but I started a transportation company when we moved here, and that's how I was basically paying my bills until my pension kicked in. And I was doing this also on the side, probably one day a week, maybe I think we were doing at the time. But Damien I came to know of because they were someone's oh, I know a retired NYPD sergeant. He's got a transportation company too. So we were sort of competition, even though whatever I couldn't do or we couldn't handle, I would always refer to him just because I knew him, even though I never met him. And then his daughter is my younger daughter's age, went to the same school, all that stuff. So if you guys could help out, this is a GoFundMe. Anything you could do, even if it's $5, $10, whatever, just help the family pay the bills. He retired a while back, Damien, but 100% was an NYPD sergeant. Like I said, I don't know him. I'm going to share it on social media. I haven't spoke to him in regards to it, but it's going around my wife's church group, and they asked if I could put it out there. So I just wanted to pay it forward, because, you guys were so supportive with Derek, and I don't know that it's the same exact type of brain tumor, but he's not getting a good diagnosis. So just if you guys could do that, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah. Do you have the link, John?
Sure. I'm going to share it right now, and then I got to run.
Yeah. Post the link in the chat. Yeah. But let's see, 2.5 hours in, guys. I think it's time for us to get to those super chats. But
Marlon, do you mind doing the super chats? I just got to run. I just sent you the link too. You think you can handle it real quick? I'll be right back.
Yeah. No problem.
All right.
Yeah.
And I sent you the link. I wasn't sure how to do it. I sent it on the phone.
Yeah, guys. So I'm going to post the link in the chat right now, and like we said, we're going to post the link on social media as well. Now, be mindful that we also have scammers that watch the show. I know because they try calling me all the time, and I know they also listen to the show. So apparently, a lot of them live in like the Philippines too. Just looking at the analytics, and India. But anyway, right? Make sure you follow this link and don't click on other links that may pop up. And again, only click on the link that we're going to post on our social media. Do not fall victim to these scammers. Chief, I just posted it, so you should see it popping up in the chat right now. And again, we appreciate you guys, and if you can, help. But anyway, let's look at some of the comments and some of the super chats, right? Juju, that's not true, Juju. Okay, we're not saying anything about her competency. We're just saying, okay, that it's not a good look. Okay, that's all we're saying. It's not a good look if you're a firearms expert to have those fingernails, and it's not good if you're teaching tactics to especially young rookies who don't know anything. Okay, you have to be in the tactical mindset, and you have to encourage these young guys and these young women that they can't have 3-inch fingernails. Okay, especially as a rookie who doesn't know anything. Okay, you have to have the tactical mindset when you're in the job, and the tactical mindset means that you're certainly, in the case of your hands, you're equipped or you're ready to be able to reach for any tool on your belt and not be obstructed by things like your fingernails. So that's all we're saying. But let's go through the super chats. So first we have a $1.99 from 516 Diecast. Thank you, brother. He says, present for duty. Good morning, all, I guess. Let's have a safe week, my friends. Thank you, 516 Diecast. Yeah, we're heading into that time of the year where the weather is starting to get warm, and you know what happens when the weather gets warm, guys. Okay, so when hoodie season ends, it's suns out, guns out. So just be mindful of that. We also have a comment from Joe Mango, who submitted $9.99 to the podcast. Thank you again, brother. Joe Mango says, John, how did you hear about the Lyndhurst thing? Also, I want to ask you guys, is Eduardo? Yeah, we answered that earlier. Yeah, we don't know. We asked that same question about Eduardo St. Fort. We don't know right now, but it's very curious that Eduardo is also connected to Eric Adams. So you have to wonder. And again, St. Fort himself, Captain Derby St. Fort, was connected to the whole NGO sphere, So I'm very curious also about his possible connections. Okay, and now we have 199 from I Told You So way back when. He says Marlon telling John to unmute priceless. Yeah, it said it I think 3 times, huh? So and I didn't he didn't have to tell me once this episode, so I think I'm doing pretty well this episode so far, you know.
You did good, Marlon. No, I'm telling you, like not having Eric, it like my timing was off with how much time I had in the background because I usually mute myself. I play the video, I bring it up, and then I pull it up, you know. So like my timing was off because you know, I usually have a little bit more time with Eric on to get everything ready in the background for the next clip. So it's not easy producing and doing it, you know. It's not easy.
Yeah. Yeah. What did I say, Hassan? I didn't say 999. Yeah. But yeah, I'm old and my eyes are going. So excuse me. All right. They aren't grandma glasses. Okay. They were cool when I first got them like 2 years ago, but I do think it's time for me to update them.
I was thinking about getting those, like the other thing. I got to get my daughter. I'm gonna get my daughter who's like legally blind. I'm gonna get her those Meta glasses, because there's a lot of different apps like that work with it, like where she could say like, you know, what am I looking at, or read the sign for me, like, you know what I mean, things like that. So I'm gonna see how that if that's beneficial to her, you know.
Yeah, just be careful with those because she has to know when to turn it off. And even then, I would turn it off and put it in something in a case because there's been word that the Meta, the geeks at Meta can turn it on remotely. You know?
Oh, to look at you?
Yeah.
I mean, look, we're so heavily surveilled anyway. I mean, it is what it is at this point, you know. But I get what you're saying. But I don't want it to be a permanent thing. But I think you know, if it could be a supportive thing, then definitely it's something that good. You know what I mean? To give her a little bit more independence. Because it sucks not being able to see, dude. It's not, you know, it's not it's not easy, you know, not an easy thing. So so I'm not too worried about it. I mean, look, we're on right now, you know. I got a weird message the other day, someone saying, "Oh, you're being surveilled." I was like, whatever, you know.
It is. It's true. It's true. It's true. I look at some of the people who follow us on like X, and I'm like, that's definitely a fake account. You know, which agency is he from? Which NGO is watching us there? You know, so I don't put that. You know, I for a fact think we are being looked at because of the things we say, and because we're not willing to toe these narratives. We're dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, even I'll tell you, like, you have a look at my LinkedIn, you'd be scared when you see the names that look at my profile.
Yeah.
You're like, what the hell is this guy like looking at me for? You know what I mean? Like, you know.
Yeah, Department of Defense.
Everything. FBI. And like, I'm not talking about like agents. I'm talking about like top guys. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, we must be saying something right. You know what I mean? Like, you know, so you know, it is what it is. You know, I don't care though. I'm just at that point in my life. I really don't care, you know.
Yep.
So
yeah. So we have $8 from KB in NYC. You know, we appreciate it, KB. You know, KB is one of our loyal viewers. I always see him on the show. So we appreciate you. We appreciate you, KB, and we appreciate all you regular chat members. You know, I think you guys make the show a lot more lively, and you know, you're almost part of the show because again, there isn't an episode that goes by that we don't see Hassan in there or Hoodmare. Or you know, there's Chief Marino in there as well. So we appreciate it, KB. But he says, for the number of college Juju has made in his career, those who can do, those who can't teach. True, very true. Okay. Now we have $9.99 from Chief Marino. He says, "Good show, Marlon." Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. Yeah. So I think that's about it for the super chats. Let me see. Let me double check it again. Yeah, that's about it. But Hassan, well, apparently Hassan, you should just get 10 collars and then go take the test because you know we're seeing all these chiefs go up the ranks and they have like very little under their belts, you know. But to be honest, no, you know, you know when it's time, when that voice is telling you to take the test. And for those of you who you're hearing that voice right now, you really do need to take that test, okay? because again, you have guys like Juju, and you have guys who have nothing, who did nothing as cops, and they're going up the ranks, and they're going to be giving you orders. So you need to take the test. Okay, and we have one last 199 from my visual zone. Marlon wishes he had nails like that woman. Funny, yeah.
Eric, $10. That's it, Eric. Eric spent all the money he got on his clip, his 1.5 million short, which was so he had to donate another $9.50 because he only made 49 cents. Again, 1.5 million views. He says Joe Cops, 3-inch fingernails, and white supremacy. What a day. And just to add on that, Jason said you guys are going to be getting Joe Copped all day on Sal's show. Look, it is what it is. I mean, like if that's what it is, like telling the truth makes you a Joe Cop. It is what it is. It's like breaking. I found cops said dumb shit in their group chat. It's like, wow, bro, you're really onto something here. That's like fire, bro. You invented fire. So whatever.
Yeah.
Look, there's everyone says that we're bitter, and I really don't think so. I think we talk about the real issues. We talk about the real unfriendly issues. We go places that a lot of people aren't willing to go. I mean, that basically everyone is unwilling to go. We talk about the root problems, the root causes of what is wrong in law enforcement and public safety and in politics, and how it has upended New York City and the NYPD. We're not looking to burn the system down. We're looking to improve the system, change the system. Some people are looking to burn the system down, take everybody with them. And that's just not us. So,
Well said. Well said. Yeah. So I think we had a pretty good show today. And thank you guys again in the chat for that lively chat. A lot of comments that we didn't get to in there, but yeah, we thank you guys for joining us today. And we just got $9.99 from Patrick Donahue. Said today's reading of Super Chats by Marlon is sponsored by Dude Wipes. When Eric bangs in and Makari needs to join. You know what's funny about that? Those Dude Wipes. So Woot, if you're on Woot, every now and then they offer like this thing called box of crap, right? It's basically a mystery box for $10. Sometimes you get good stuff in there, Sometimes you might get a good tool in there that's like a $40, $50 tool, right? So I ordered a box and they had it was just like a whole box of crap, literally crap this time, right? And one of those things is Dude Wipes, and I'm like, what the hell is this? It's actually called Dude Wipes. It's basically like the sanitization wipes, but it said Dude Wipes. I'm like, what are you supposed to do with that? I mean, like, somebody, I would really reconsider the name of that, But yeah, it's a real thing. Yeah.
I don't know, but I didn't drop a deuce. I had someone at my door.
They always think that every time we get off camera.
Yeah. I could hold my bladder, thank you. I got some real stamina. So yeah, like I said, Wednesday, I got to confirm, but we should have him on. We're gonna have Larry Sharp running for governor in New York on a Wednesday. Eric will be back on Wednesday, and then Friday we'll bring you all the news that happens this week. I'm sure we're gonna get a lot of love today on another podcast. Sleepy Joe's wants to know how tall I am. I already told you guys.
He's 5'5", Sleepy.
I'm 5'4". Without heels.
Wait, you lost an inch in like a month now? In 2 weeks since you came back?
Yeah, I'm 5'4".
Yeah.
So
let me just let me find out who's on the 10-4 Tavern tomorrow. And
I know Ron's co-hosting it. It's gonna be Ron and Pete. I think Tom's gonna be on a cruise. I know who they're having on, and I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Like a DEA agent, I think, like an undercover. I can't think of his name though.
Yeah, Lou Valos. Let me pull this up quickly. Let's see. Yeah, Duvalos. He's a former ATF UC, so should be a good show tomorrow at usual time, which is 7:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And like John said, Spectre Layson is gonna be sitting in for Tom, and he's gonna be with Pete. So should be another great show. So
Yeah,
tomorrow, 7:05 p.m. tomorrow, guys.
7:05, and then the executive perspective will be on Wednesday. So, we're rocking and rolling here, people. We're rocking and rolling. There was a couple other things that happened over the weekend, but whatever. I think we got a little sidetracked with all the white supremacy, with the new major scandal in the police department.
Mm-hmm.
It was just that timeline was that AI timeline was just something else. I was like, are you kidding me? You got a group text that you compare that to the Lexout committee? Like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah. The social media is the worst thing that happened to Sanders. Yeah, worst thing. Yeah. If you look at his appearances before and after, see now that there's so much access to Sanders, it used to be special when Sanders came on South Show because you're waiting for him to drop knowledge on you. Especially, I liked when he talked about the past incidents that have been forgotten, like the incidents with the clubs in Brooklyn. But now he's always on social media, and the access and him talking about everything hasn't been good for him. It hasn't, absolutely not. But
what
yeah,
happened,
guys.
Jason? We missed your super chats. I honestly don't even see them in here, dude.
Oh,
I don't see them in here. I didn't see them either, dude. So I don't know. Well, we appreciate you if you did, bro, but we don't say it. If you type it, we'll read it out for you. Yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, someone said we're getting close to like 200K subscribers. Look, the subscriber count's going up, but like our views are like really like I don't know what the hell's going on. I feel like I don't know what the. So again, I care less. I care less how many subscribers we had. I think that our views should match that. I mean, I don't understand why that's not happening. I mean, we've been averaging on YouTube like 1.6 million views a month, but a lot of that has to do with a lot of our shorts, not really the regular episodes. Some of the episodes they do well, over time they get close to 10,000. Audio episodes doing really well. The audio episodes that we put out. I kind of lag behind on those for those of you that do listen on audio. And I do that on purpose, honestly, because I'm trying to drive more traffic to the YouTube. I figure let people leave it up on YouTube for a couple of days, and then we'll throw it to the audio podcasts. And obviously, because you guys are with us live, like we get a few hundred people on here. Like right now, we have about 500 people live with us right now. So we try to dedicate it more to that. So yeah, I don't know, man. Look, we keep growing, we keep doing the right thing. I think that we're growing quickly, and I think that's happening because whether you agree with us or you don't agree with us, we're not pushing a narrative. We're not trying to sell you garbage. We're just giving you our opinion, whether you agree with it or not. So I mean, it is what it is. Again, I think that's really what we're missing in the media and we're missing in society is we all just lie to each other instead of telling each other the truth about how we feel about situations. Hood Maya, I know you were upset about our last episode. I see you keep saying a lot of comments about it. That's how I feel, dude. Like, look, you can disagree all you want, but like, it is what it is. That's how I feel about it. That's how I feel about, using race as a crutch or using slavery as a crutch. I don't use the situation I was born into as a crutch. My father didn't use the situation that was a lot worse than anyone I know of as a crutch. And so I'm sick of hearing people use situations that happened 200 years prior to them as a crutch. I'm just sick of it. I'm like, I don't, that's just how I feel about it,
Yeah, there's a good video about it. I didn't play it here today, but Owen Schroyer broke it down about the victimhood economy, and he's spot on with it. There's an entire economy based off of victimhood on the right and on the left. And remember, if there's more victimhood, people like Eric Sanders eats well. more victimhood, more lawsuits. Okay, and if there's more victimhood, people like Hawk Newsom eats well too. Okay, but the whole point is that none of this doesn't benefit the communities that they claim to help. Okay, because what benefits them is empowerment. Okay, and what benefits them is not, you know, you know, things have happened in the past, and you have to live in the present. You know, you can't be like, you know, you can't wallow in 400 years and all that nonsense, you know, because you're not going to get anywhere. Okay, and because at this point in history, when America has to compete now with China, okay, because China is looking to eat our lunch, you need every American and to feel a sense of national pride and to feel empowered to make themselves better, to make their community better, and to make the country better. Otherwise, we're going to become the new third world country while China takes what we had. Okay, so that's the problem with this whole victimhood economy.
No, it's a joke. And, you know, like you watch it now, like you got the grifters around racism as it's concerning black and brown people. You see them profiting. You see them with all their new fancy jackets with the fur. You see them on the come up with all that. And then when you look on the right, you see the same anti-Semitism grift, right? You see all the grifters around that. And that has nothing to do. I mean, look at just what Eric Adams did, right? He's the big champion of anti-Semitism now, right? I mean, dude worked for Louis Farrakhan, but whatever. You know, yeah. He told you that if you buy his crypto coin, it was fighting anti-Semitism. I'm like, it's done nothing, but it's a money-making grift and scam. And it's the same thing now with these panic buttons, and everyone's asking for donations to stop anti-Semitism, and it's the same thing to fight racism. It's a grift, man. It's a race hustle. It's a race and religion hustle. That's really what it is. You know, it's a hustle, all of it. At the same time, the NYPD is downplaying hate crimes. It's a complete joke. And other thing, New York City speaker, I think she's getting caught up in all this insanity too, because the same company with those migrant contracts, apparently she gave over, I think it was like $375,000 in no bid money to that same contractor too. So there's a lot of stuff coming out about that, and whenever that happens, always look for the distractions around the race or the religion. Oh, it's because of this, it's because of that, blah blah blah. You're an anti-Semite, you know. If you, I love, like, if you criticize any black or brown individual on the left, you're a racist. You hate black and brown people. If you criticize anything that happened with Israel or the war, you're an anti-Semitic. It's like, come on, dude. It's like so and disingenuous. Like, you won't even have the conversation, you know. So,
yeah. And don't forget, Eric Adams told you to buy his coin, and then he rug pulled you. And now that coin is like worth nothing. Okay, so much for actually fighting anti-Semitism. You know.
Nah, totally agree, dude. All right, let's get out of here. Let's curious what the Joe Cobb comments are gonna
be. Yeah, guys. So again, thanks for joining us. Hope you have a great week. And if you're on patrol, okay, remember, sun's out, guns out. So you don't get complacent and lackadaisical out there. But I'll see you on Friday, and be back here on Wednesday for God, I got a brain.
Larry Sharp.
Yeah, Larry Sharp. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. All right, guys. So thanks for joining us. Have a good one.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?